Welcome to the Flawed, Foolish and Fantastic podcast.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ.
Rav Singh, thank you for being on our little podcast. We've started this new podcast called the Flawed, Foolish and Fantastic podcast. The Flawed and Foolish are me and Kamalpreet Singh. We are the Flawed and Foolish, and our guests on this podcast, we're in order to show the fantastic work that they're doing, either through an organisation or individually or promoting something. And I have been following yourself on Facebook, on Instagram, and I keep trying to get on these little tours that you're doing with my kids, but they're lazy kids at the moment, so I will push them into it. But for me, it's something I've always been interested in, and I can't understand or fathom how you even got into it. So first of all, what I want to do is just say thank you for inviting us on as a guest.
Lovely to have you here.
To be on our podcast. And what we're looking to do is find out more about you. The promotion of your work is online, but who is the person behind the work? So I just want to start off with, obviously, thanking you for being on, and just starting off with, who is Rav Singh?
That's an interesting question because it's a name, isn't it? Rav Singh. Not to be confused with Ravi Singhs, or there are loads of Rav Singhs out there. And I've never worried about my name, to be honest, Rav Singh, because my name's always been a problem. I had two variations when I was young.
Yeah.
So my dad spelt it differently. When we went to do the birth certificate, my passport had it differently. So mortgages, it all kind of came to light. I had two names when I went for my mortgage.
That's saying an experience check, that would be interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting. And then I had created my own name called Rav Singh because I was always confused with the two Ranveer Singhs. I'm actually Ranveer Singh, I-E-R-E-E-R. But Rav Singh was the adopted name around university time. Yeah. And who is Rav Singh? So I think for me it's from an education perspective, worked in the corporates, an engineer by trade, genetics, and all of that kind of is meaningless really. So for me I just try and live my Sikhi or my version of Sikhi in all that I try and do.
Yeah.
And Rav Singh type, and what I find is Rav Singh gets bored very quickly. So I think I've worked for about 30 different employers for 22 years. I get things done and move on. I don't worry about staying on. I don't build kind of any roots in any single organisation. Yeah. Job done, move on, job done, and that takes me places to places. And all those experiences, I think, is what we're going to talk about today. You know?
Okay. Right. With regards to that, I'm going to start because you've told me a bit about who is Rav Singh, but tell me about your childhood. What moulded you as a child into the person that you are today?
Yeah, so I think so I was probably a mid-80s to mid-90s kid. So mid-80s are probably my earliest memories. Yeah. So born in the 70s and mid-80s, and I think I've come across some previous podcasts of people like yourself where we were Gurdwara kids, you know, we hung around the Gurdwara, you know, and in my area I think our house was in between two Gurdwaras, so you could turn left and go to 10 to 14 Neville Road, or turn right and go to 270 Neville Road, walk a bit further, you're at Rosebery Avenue, keep walking a bit further, you're at the Ravidasi Gurdwara, turn left from 10 to 14 and you're at the Namdari headquarters of the UK. So I just think all of my childhood was spent with my grandmother, kind of in Gurdwara settings, on a satsang or on a program, and it's only because it was so local. Yeah. So my childhood, a lot of the memories are around Gurdwara settings, Punjabi school, and they also had a sports centre, a Ramgarhi, a Sikh sports centre, and I was nearly there every day. I think it closed on Wednesdays. Yeah. But Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, in the evenings we were there, playing hockey, playing table tennis, playing darts, building Sikh friends because they were all there. And that was really my life, really, school and Gurdwara type activities in our very local community until about 18. Okay. And 18 things kind of really changed. You know.
You talk about your schooling and your childhood itself, it was spent around the Gurdwaras.
Yeah.
What was the influence you had from the Gurdwaras?
I think it was varied, because for me, I think my grandmother was at ease in any Gurudwara because she had friends in every Gurudwara, which made me at ease in any Gurudwara. And I never consciously thought that I'm at a Singh Sabha Gurudwara or at Ramgarhia Gurudwara or a Namdhari headquarters or a Ravidasi Gurudwara. Somehow the people there were all connected anyway through Kenya or through other places. They all knew each other. So you'd be at the Gurudwara for a satsang or a function and the people were friendly. And so I just kind of felt at ease because they were all within walking distance. It's like Newham is the land of 7 Gurudwaras, you know. And that's what I always used to think. So if it wasn't here or there, and the influences I think for me were really at Ramgarhia Sikh Sports Centre.
Okay.
So there were these, probably a group of 10, at that time they would have been in their 30s, East African Sikhs with their own businesses who had thought that a sports centre would be good for the kids and they would shut their businesses and they would every night be there between 7 and 9, 2 every evening, and they all had businesses either in the cars or wholesalers or things like that. And they would turn up and they'd do 2.5 hour shifts and there'd be about 30, 40 kids there playing sports, and then at 9:30 they'd lock up, they'd go home to their own families. So you had the Monday people, the Tuesday people, you got to know them all. They were good people, you know, things were very local.
Was it organised sports or organised chaos? Because most of the Gurdwara was in the 80s.
Yeah.
We had sports centres, but it was organised chaos.
So I think the Ramgarhia Sikh Sports Centre, I think they brought their organisation from East Africa.
Okay,
So they came in and they had their tournament every year, and the leagues in each sports, they then started getting us in the leagues, in the Essex leagues. So I played table tennis in Essex. Our Gurudwara team was the borough team for the London Youth Games. And those gave you platforms to start building outside of the Gurudwara. Because we had advocates who were non-Sikh. So we were coached by international table tennis players. You know, Sky Andrews was number 6 in England, but he came to a Gurudwara to earn a bit of pin money on a Thursday. You know, we'd all have to pay him £2 or £5 and wear his t-shirts. But it just made it interesting that that even though we were rooted in East London and probably never stepped out of Newham, that our influences were coming in
from outside.
And there were some good hockey players and some good darts players from the Forwards Darts Club, and the Gurudwara hub was quite active, and it lasted until, I suppose, till about 98, 99, when it fizzled away. And I sincerely feel that for our children now, how good it would have been for them to have a hub like a youth club, you know, but it's not there, and there's not one similar one here. You know.
What was the reason for it closing?
It was varied. I think certain key individuals moved on, like their jobs took them to faraway destinations. And then there was bigger projects in mind that didn't take off, but the Gurudwara, I suppose the Seva kind of naturally fizzled out, and the next generation didn't really come in to step in. You know, the equipment moved to other Gurudwara.
Not just that, by that time we all had computers, didn't we?
Yeah, it was different.
Because when we were kids, you get on your bike, you know where everybody was because there were 10 bikes outside somebody's house.
That's it.
Or you were out playing football in a field, or you were doing whatever, like you said.
But for me, it was like, you know, we had to go to Slough, Southall, Leeds for tournaments, Ramgarhia network, and my front room was just full of trophies. Because if you weren't playing hockey, you'd play table tennis. If you weren't playing, you'd playing darts. You'd come back with a trophy or whatever. You know, so the room was just full of trophies. And
better than those, I used to buy my trophies.
So that felt like there was a structure in your life, you know, that you could excel in something that you worked to, because you practiced every week at the Gurudwara. Then you played in the Essex leagues against Gore mainly, and then you played against Punjabis in the summer tournaments, and that was nice. You know, that was a good memory of mine. You know, that we did that. A lot of friends, they're all in their 40s now. I made them through the Gurudwara. You know, they still play dads and lads football sometimes. You know, they're all from there. The football team.
Your friends are rooted from them. I've still got so many friends from the Gurudwara. Like I said, we did a podcast with Kojit and who now does Seva Gurudwara. I'm like, knew each other when we were 12, 13, and you're like in your 40s now. But
I think the problem is we kind of expected the club always to be there, and it's not there. So for my children, their karate was at, you know, Chadwell Heath Karate, which is local. You know, their sports activities are through structured clubs. It's not rooted to the Gurudwara, and that's a worry for me. Kind of, you know, how are they going to grow up with, You know, other than Punjabi school, where are they going to get their Sikh connections from? Social circles, you know. And I suppose kids these days don't worry about that. Their friends can be of any faith. Where I know when we were younger, you know, our parents made sure our friends were all kind of own faith.
I think coming from my thoughts, we had to have a sort of Sikh collective because there were so few in numbers.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we had a talk with, like I said, with somebody else last week, and they were saying the National Front was around and other organisations were around who were, there was still an immigration worry, not to, you know.
So my kind of memories are when my older cousins suffered at National Front, like when we started to get an awareness, that started to fizzle out, late 80s rather than mid 80s or early 80s. But definitely the stories were there, the atmosphere was still, it was still.
That's why the parents went, we need to gang you all together.
Space.
You got
We didn't know that. We
exactly.
just came to the good though, right? But it was a safe haven.
Exactly.
You know,
It was a safe space where those activities, I guess, we could have got from what you look at today with the Scouts and the Cubs and groups like that. But it was a safe space where they knew that your faith and religion were not going to be compromised in any way.
That's true, and they
that's
also
probably,
that was probably primary to our parents. You know, that you're not going to go there and be polluted.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
It's a safe space. So I think, I agree with that. But for me, that kind of worked in a big way because we took every opportunity that we had. You know, we learnt the Punjabi quite early. We were easily able to communicate with everyone at the Gurudwara. Punjabi English was easy. And then the sports gave us a platform to just focus on something really.
Yeah.
You know? And it's weird because at that time, I don't think Sikhi, it was a space that was safe, but we didn't have a lot of Sikhi being, you know, we were never inside at the Gurudwara, we were outside, right? Yeah. Right, you're practicing football.
So that's why you did him off the dick, I got you for sure.
Find your friends.
Oh, yeah, where are you? Let's play tick.
You're in the Langar Hall, right?
Exactly,
you're going to be in the Langar Hall, right? So, and then at the end, you might come in for the Ardas, and then it's back in the Langar Hall with the Langar. Yeah. I think that was our 2000, I mean, from 8 to 18 would have been that kind of, but growing up with people as well. So yeah, that's one aspect of it, but I think another aspect of my childhood was a lot of reading.
Yeah.
So I could read through books quite easily. I think I went to Plaistow Library, used to walk there, and other than the adult section, I'd read all the books. So I was like, this is boring, now I need a new library because I'm taking out these fact books or these fiction books again and again, and I'm just getting through them.
Is there something that was particular that you liked reading?
It was facts. I didn't want fiction.
So,
I was just absorbing information, thinking if I know all this stuff, I'm going to get a good job. So if I know populations and flags and geographies and countries,
I knew every capital city.
I
knew every flag. I knew every country.
Every little bit of data that we could get our hands on.
Encyclopedias. That's what I used to read.
Encyclopedia had all of those. Encyclopedias, so you read through every topic, learn all that stuff. And you just felt it was a grounding for a very good career.
Exactly.
No matter what it's going to be, we don't know, but we need to know everything that these books tell you. And fiction, I thought, was just a waste of time.
Still today.
You know.
I'm sitting there reading like goodbye books or Pikas and things like that. My brother will go, "Have you read the Harry Potter book?" Like, get like gone out of here. Well, my daughters do the same. Like, have you seen? No. Have you seen the anime books? And I'm like, much as I like watching anime, I ain't got time to read that.
But now I do, because I travel, now I do read those, and I can get involved in a crime thriller, and I went through all of those at the library, you know, and or a charity shop, and I've done that. I went through a phase, but much later in life, when I was travelling, then I would have a book with me and just get through 70 pages in a journey, and then you're absorbed in the story, and I thought, why didn't I know about this before?
Yeah, exactly.
You know? But I was very much a collector of facts, because I think that was going to help me. That's what I thought at the time.
Well, with regards to, obviously, collector of facts, you say, what was your education like?
So the education, I've still got every report I've ever had, and it was always me and a friend at the top of the class. Grew up in Newham, East London. I don't think we ever saw a white person. There was a white kid in our school called Dean White, I remember that, but he used to truant a lot, so we never used to see him.
Did you just make his surname up because?
No, his name was Dean White. There was a Gordo called Dean White in our secondary school, but I saw him maybe once a year. You know, he was just happy at home. So we grew up in a very Indian, you know, Gujarati, Muslim, Sikh, Punjabi, Bengali type school, and during my secondary years, that school was being identified as an uncertain future.
Really?
So basically there was all that grant maintained status going on, there was rumours in the community, no messages coming out. So the safe option was to get your kids out of that school. So I moved to an area called Redbridge, and I moved to a school on the borders of Romford, which meant a 1 hour bus journey every day. And that was great because it gave you independence and it got you out of Newham, and it was a good school. And but there was only 2 or 3 Indian kids there.
So you went from a melting pot of Asian people to being a few.
Yeah, and the only thing that really helped me was I was in top set. If you're sitting next to me, you can copy all my work, you're going to get top marks, you know. And I think if you're near enough guaranteed an A in every assignment, then people want to sit next to you. They don't want to make you. So that protected you from any kind of harassment or anything. And if others got it, I wasn't aware of it. There was a lot of fights in our school, but it was just brown versus everyone else, or brown and black versus everyone else on football. But it was nothing like any kind of violence that goes on these days. It was just you go back to lessons and you get on again, right? And that's fine. Everyone forgets about it. You get told off. But me, because I was very academic, because I was absorbing so much information, I think I did 13 GCSEs where most people did 9. They said to me, don't worry about PE, you can just do Italian. Don't worry about that, you could do this to get the school's numbers higher and higher. So they weren't a problem. They were a string of A's and then A levels. And then you obviously have your Punjabi mess up 1 year, then you get serious the next year. So I went back home, West Ham College, and did the A levels, got good grades after a repeat year in the first year, and then got an offer at Imperial. And Imperial was a top university. I think I had pharmacy at Aston or genetics at Imperial. I didn't know what I was going to do with genetics, but I just wanted to go to Imperial.
Like I said, I had a cousin who went into that in 95, So he went into genetics and Leeds as well, because at the time you're thinking this is going to be the future.
It was a pre-millennium, wasn't it?
Yeah,
we were still mapping the genome,
yeah.
right? So that was what your interviews are on, the Human Genome Project. I had an interview, and they gave the offer, got the grades, and that was when the world kind of opened up to me, because I don't think there was very many Londoners in our course. There's about 6 of us in 100. Most of 60% of the course was foreigners who were paying for their education, but these were just such polite, nice kids, you know, that you were just like, this is not the kind of kids I'm used to, you know. Everyone had 4 or 5 or 6 A levels, and I think I had 3 or 4. If you count Punjabi, it's 4. I did 3. And suddenly, from being top of the class, you're now in the bottom quartile, and you're playing catch up. And
you realise that the level is, you're just...
These kids are like sponsored by governments to come here, do the course, and go back and work for them. I think Hong Kong, China, Singapore, Greece, Kenya, Finland. These are people I can count on my hand. I remember where they were from.
Germany. Cream of the crop from their country.
The cream of the crop from their countries, paying international rates to come to a university and actually do something in genetic engineering, where I was just like...
So they're like those, in the US, how you get the scholarship kids, isn't it?
Yeah, some of them were on a scholarship where they got £200 a week just to live on in London. I was like, what the hell, you know? I was just like...
That's like £20 a week when I was at uni.
Yeah, I think I was on my grandmother was paying for my travel card to go across on the district line because I couldn't live out. And but I didn't know, I just knew of these people and got to know them as friends. I didn't know their background until you see it on Facebook now and you see, you know, actually where they were coming from. I think one group of friends came to my house and they had tea. Obviously they enjoyed Indian tea, but one of the girls was from Switzerland. And she said, I don't understand why your house is stuck to someone else's house.
Okay, semi-detached.
I was like, it's a Terry's house.
Yeah, exactly.
She goes, no, we have land around the house. I was like, yeah, but we're in London. But seriously, you didn't think that? You thought this was just like we would have a country mansion and this would be just something for London access. She goes, is this really your house? I said, yeah, this is where we live. I was like, yeah, but, you know, then you don't know what kind of... In Switzerland, she probably has got...
She's probably got Alps and cows and
all that,
waterfalls.
And she probably had, you know, but to me, these questions were, wow, you know, and then... but I could adapt into that, because we were all doing the same assignments, you're all getting similar grades.
It's just pre-internet.
Yes.
So the mind was very small then, wasn't it?
Very small. Very small. So we were 96 to 99.
Yeah, because
we had a computer lab.
98.
Yeah, it's a computer lab where you go and check your emails once a week. No one's going to send you an email because everyone else has got one.
Well, the only one who sent emails was the person who sat next to me. Exactly. It would be like a picture of a cat or something like that.
Yeah, so we were still going into the library and do that microfiche stuff and sliding through, then getting the librarian to print it, then trying to rehash it in the evening in the library. And I didn't realise that you just actually should have just taken the second year student, the Punjabi, the second year, just take all their assignments because they're the same. But you didn't realise that. That's what the foreign students had. They had coaches in the year 2 or year 3. That's why they could enjoy London. They had ready-made assignments. All they had to do was improve them.
So you're at university, like I said.
Yeah. So I was up till 99 at uni, and then I was just thinking, what do I do? I've got a degree now. Got the old 2-1 as they say, or and then you just start looking for work, and everyone has a minimum requirement. And I didn't really apply for jobs. I think in those days I used to believe in one. I just need to make one application, I'll get the job. That's fine.
Send me one CV out.
Yeah, I think I'll just wait for it.
Send 20 CVs out to 20 companies. Anyone goes, cheer me now.
And I just thought I wanted to chill, and I had a few businesses that I'd lined up with some friends. They're behind you over there. And one of the businesses meant we had to go to Las Vegas.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, so I've been to Las Vegas through uni years and everything. And we had a car show there to go to. We would order a car and ship it over. And I do all the paperwork and everything. So I'd go over. And it was going to go in February. And so I walked into a high street and I said, look, I'm going to Las Vegas. I need some gambling money. Can you get me a temp assignment for 2 weeks? I'll make 200-300 quid, take it with me. And I won't worry about spending it at the casino because, that's not my real job. So I did the tests and I got 100% in every test I remember. And she said, you know what, you can come and work for us. So we're opening up a new position here. And I went in as a statistician. So this genetic engineering actually led to a statistical job with Reed in partnership, who was just starting to take public-private contracts. And I didn't know, I just wanted 2 weeks of work. Went to Las Vegas, came back and they said, do you want to just work for us? And I was like, how much are you paying? And it was like the same as the graduate scheme. And I was like, well then that's fine then, isn't it? I only wanted to earn 21 grand a year, you're giving me it. That's fine. And that could have been a mistake, or it could have been the biggest opportunity. Because what it meant was, I didn't go into a corporate Canary Wharf or a corporate London employer, which was the plan, with my one application to the one employer that I was waiting for, and what things do these days, where if you get a good degree, you go to the city. And I didn't hear back from them, so that must have gone in the bin. And I started a career with Reed. And Reed, at that time, Tony Blair's government had come in, education. They were taking over job centres and privatising them. And it was just a roller coaster of learning. And I was sitting in the centre of it as the company statistician, predicting. We used to get a folder full of work data from Derby University. I would analyse that, make spreadsheets and predict the future profits of the company through the inflow of the unemployed to coming out to read contracts of the jobs. And I created these spreadsheets and work, and I started to work it all out. And it's like, great, this is good. Then they opened up a European projects division, took me over there. I did a postgraduate in European and government funding, learned about structural funding and European funding. Then I went to Liverpool, Glasgow, Middlesbrough, setting up these programmes with government money and tapping in European money. So it was exciting for a young person, and the money was good, and in recruitment bonuses are good, so money was coming in, car was paid for, and it was good. And it kind of gave me a few years. And then Reed itself had a few issues with governance on those projects and how they were working. And then I kind of worked out that actually my role in the statistician role, my data was showing that. And people knew that, but I didn't know that. Because I was just like, well, my data said this person's going to come in and then we're going to train them and then we're going to get the job, then we're going to get a bonus, then we're going to get this. And that was weird. And it's all been in the news for a different company. Action for Employment had been in the news in the Midlands with a similar setup. And I was looking at my data thinking, now I'm looking at it in a different light. There's things going on that I can't see. And how could I see them? I was a graduate thinking everyone follows the rules. And that was weird. And then I just thought, I don't want to work in the private sector because everyone's on bottom line. So I took comfort, I think, in the bosom of the public sector. They said, you're leaving to join the public sector. I said, mate, it's what I'm comfortable doing. And we have 32 London boroughs. So I spent from 2003
Yeah.
till about 2014, and I think I've worked for 24 of them.
Oh yeah.
Delivering projects, going there, picking up a project that's in trouble, rescuing it, turning it around, delivering it, job done, move on. So I worked in social regeneration,
Yeah.
then economic regeneration, then physical regeneration. And it was all to do with this postgraduate master's I did in regeneration, tapping in European funding, seeing all that money coming to London as a Objective 3 funding. And I learned lots, and you were given a lot of independence. You're not an auditor, you're not an accountant, but auditors, accountants, lawyers, they all have to give you their reports, and you're turning it into stories to manage programs. And then we have the biggest regeneration program in the world, which is Stratford Olympics. That came in, and our companies didn't win anything because all the Americans came in. They charged in, and it was like we were called the Stratford Development Partnership at that time, and we didn't get nothing, you know. And so my company got bought out, and I ended up at Capita, which is like a FTSE 25 company, but that was through Tribal and other companies. And so really my CV is just littered with loads and loads of projects. And then in 2013, I just kind of had enough of projects, and I just said, I'm going to set my own company up with a friend. So I had my own company, but I work under his company as well. And we call it One Consulting. So One, O-N-E, was nice for me because it meant something to me. One, but for him it was about property, FM and estates under one company. But for me it was just one company that would do things properly for you, you know. And that's what's been keeping me busy for the last 8 years.
You're still doing that now?
Yeah, so that's my, so I have a company called Rav Singh Co Limited, and the Co stands for consulting, which is One Consulting, coaching, and then contributing to communities. And it's just like this big recycling fund, because in my area of expertise we get paid well, so I can always take time out for coaching people into this field. There's no things in regeneration that I know of. You're the only turban at the meeting, you know. You're the only. The women say you're the only women at the meeting. The disabled say the only disabled. I'm the only brown person.
I do that exactly the same.
It's all in the early days. It was 50-year-old lawyers who got to the end of their careers. It was a area without a government department. Regeneration. So you're regenerating London for the third time in its history, and it was all the lawyers, and they were all lawyers, and they were generally male, who were the leaders in this field. And everyone said the same thing, it's not very diverse, unless you're at the bottom end doing the actual projects. And as my career rose, I saw how that industry worked, and I saw all the flexibilities in it, I saw what discipline could bring to it, and that's all those skills I bring into One Consulting. And One Consulting only works in the physical buildings, not social or economic. So we only do physical buildings, which should keep us busy.
Do you still do any social and economic as well?
I think my social and economic is I can link it all together, because I think it's all linked. So the buildings help the economic, they help the social. And if you can tell that story, then they see you as a rounded consultant, not just a consultant who's going to come and fix the roof.
Yeah, because that's what you want. You want to have a look at what you're regenerating around you, what's going to be the shops, what's going to be the input, what's the value. It's about adding value to them.
That used to be the key word. But the work we do is in property, but you don't understand these properties unlock so much potential. So if you look after that, the staff well-being goes up. With the staff well-being, the sickness goes down. You know, and all this stuff. And if you've got a crap building where nothing works, you got mice infestation, you know.
Sickness goes up. Your money's not coming in. The deterioration of the building.
Exactly. And what we do is when we improve a building, the value goes up, so the government can borrow more against it. That's what it is for the councils. They'll say, okay, we spent 1 million, the value's gone up by 3 million, so we can borrow another 2 million against it under low rates. And that's the modern environment. But I don't try to write business cases. I say, you do the thinking, tell me what you want done and we'll deliver it. And we're a kind of a delivery consultancy.
So do you still do work for the public?
All public sector.
All public sector.
Always public sector.
Do you get private sector approaching as well?
We don't. We choose not to, because we're client side. So we manage the private sector doing the work. So I'm basically, I write contracts. I know my own contracts that I've written. I implement them. Then we have legal, finance, procurement, communications. They all feed into our meetings. And then I basically tell the organisation what their risk is on programme quality and price. And it's an interesting thing, because to me it's just telling a story. It's letting everyone tell me their lies or their honest truths. I have to then assess it as the programme manager to say, look, are they actually going to deliver or not? And if they're not, then I can't move the staff in. The staff have to stay in their temporary accommodation. the business have to keep there, you know. All the IT can't move over. All of this stuff then becomes a problem.
So do you build action plans if they got things wrong with them?
I built everything from kids, plans, strategies, everything. That's what my job is on my 2 computer screens. I assess everyone else's reports, pick up the phone, talk to them, and I say, if you're lying, then just tell me it's not going to happen, and I can deliver a bad message.
What you're telling me is, if we get rid of Sue Gray today, you could do that report on the partying as well.
Other what?
On the partying.
You know, that all I've seen is I used to work in central government. I had 2 contracts, and politics gets in the way of everything.
Yeah,
right?
I was about to say, I've seen their reports on the way it works.
Yeah, so I just think if we could just
you
do a project,
you need somebody outside. Always.
If I could just do a project without the politics, I could deliver it in half the time. But once the money comes in, everyone changes it. When, you know, we have a brief, we have a blueprint, we want to deliver this, but when it's confirmed or European money comes in, then the brief changes. Oh, yeah, why can't you deliver this and deliver this and deliver this?
Well, that's
and suddenly you're creating a can of worms.
Your aims and objectives always change
yeah.
once the finances are there, because people see that what they couldn't budget towards or what they couldn't push as part of their agenda, they then push into.
And you know, you learn all these things by living and breathing projects, and because I had that experience at Reed, I always knew that you need to have the details sorted, and the data's going to tell a story. There's no point having the story in hindsight. You know, you can't learn from it. So I've learned from that experience, and now you have to ask the right questions to get the right people telling you. And when they know they can trust you, that we're all in it together to deliver the project, you know. Don't worry, I'm here to give bad messages, you know, but I always balance them off about, you know, we can't keep promising you a Christmas transfer or, you know, you're going to go into a new building when I know it's not going to happen. And if it's not going to happen, tell them early, let's start working on the plan. If they know you've got a plan, they're okay.
That's the worst thing with some of those, where you get told last minute and then everybody's...
Projects are complicated, buildings are complicated these days. There's so many moving parts, you know. I don't even know if I can teach my kids how to do this. I don't even know if I can. You can't go to uni and learn, you know.
You've got to have a passion for it.
Yeah.
You've got to have a passion for it.
And it's all about lists, absorbing that data again, working out and telling a story. It's always, to me, it's always just telling a story. Whereas when I was younger, your director would have to tell it, or someone else would have to tell it.
Yeah.
Well, no shit, Sherlock, we're 40 years old, we're the directors
now.
Exactly. So we've got to stand up, you know. And,
it's our job to pick that up now, isn't it?
Yes, it's our job. You know, those guys have retired a long time ago. You know, so we enjoy it, and I enjoy the work. And if I can plan it, and I know there's a mitigation, then I'm confident. If there's no mitigation, that's my job, to come up with a mitigation. I can't tell a councillor or a chief exec a problem. You have a problem, this is the problem, this is what we're going to do to solve it. And if it needs more money, then tell us.
Yeah, exactly,
you know? And as a consultant, we can write that very, very cleanly, because our job's not on the line.
Are there any prominent projects you've been involved in recently?
Any?
Prominent projects?
Prominent projects. Well, basically, I've had a lot of ambulance centres I'm working for during COVID. And for 10 years, they haven't been invested in. And suddenly, they've got all this money to sort out their buildings because it's a COVID requirement now. And now we're trying to not only do what we need for COVID, we're all trying to repair the backlog as well. So there's lots of headquarters and buildings between Oxford and Southampton I've got running. But in the past, I think my prominent projects, I was the lead for a beautiful library in Croydon, a 1930s Art Deco library in Norbury. It's called Norbury Library. And I worked with a team of architects and surveyors to restore it. So it wasn't really to demolish it and start with one of these plastic double. It was actually bring out the ceiling, bring it all back, you know. Touch with the money was there, the community support was there.
Was it actually a nice building? Because a
lot
lot
of
those
beautiful 19...
A lot of those buildings, actually, that's
Art Deco, 1930s Art Deco.
Because post-war was just concrete blocks.
Post-war. So that was a recent project. The new civic centre for Tower Hamlets is going to be at the old Whitechapel Hospital. It's going to be a new civic centre, so I worked on that one, stage 0 to 3, design, REBA. So there's all these projects. We come in when there's a problem. So that we're project rescue turnaround specialist.
You're like the KPMG, but of buildings, physical funds, while they're...
and much cheaper. The only reason we get our work is because we're about a third of the cost of a KPMG report, you know. And it's funny because you go around the circuit and you see that same report in different places. And you see, how can you pay for that report that much?
We had it, Leicester Police, we had it, KPMG come in.
And then you would have gone to another police service, would have had the same report.
And then you just got, after they had done their report, an internal one was done, and they fixed whatever they did.
You know, management, I don't want to shoot management consultants, but I think there's a lot of pressure in these big companies to keep the money coming in. And the easiest way you can do that, so if that's a good idea for Croydon, it must be a good idea for every other borough. So let's just
replicate it.
Go around, tell everyone you need a digital strategy.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about the Bajara computer in the library that's got hold of this digital transformational information, thinking we need to upgrade it from the 1983 version you got there.
It's got a floppy disk, 10 meg.
Because all they use it to do is actually renew a book.
Yeah,
And it does the job,
Yeah.
you know. And I look at that and say, is that part of your digital strategy then, you know? And but they've never been to that library. They've been to the corporate headquarters. Because you don't put suits in, you know, little libraries.
No.
And so we are those. We are the delivery consultants. We're kind of like embedded in communities because of this regeneration aspect. And you know, Tower Hamlets is known as one of the poorest boroughs in London.
Yeah, it is.
But it's one of the richest councils because it's got
a lot of history as well.
A lot of history. A lot of Sikh history as well, because I'm writing a paper on that at the moment.
Can I touch upon that now?
Yeah.
Right, one of the things that attracted me to what you were doing was just seeing some of the posts that you put up. London, for me, London history is the V&A exhibition. I was like, wow, we've got here. And as far as I was concerned, that was it. And then I saw some of the stuff that you were putting up, and I was like, what is this? And then I remember that one day, like I said, I remember going and taking my kids to Tutankhamun exhibition. You went, oh, around the corner, there's this, and there's it. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm in Harrods now. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Considering I grew up in London, I was at Goodnight Sikh College from 92 to 93. We'd take the tube into London and go Trocadero and play games and come back. That was it.
Yeah.
You know, my interest was there. I would have gone. I would have known. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about was a little history of the Sikhs. This is, as far as I knew, I thought that was your prominent job, but obviously not. You're busy as hell as a project manager. Can you tell me about the little history of Sikhs, its conception, its thoughts, how you came into it, and how it's evolved to what is a beautiful place here today?
So the story's going to be in parts, really.
Take as long as you need. Because for me, that the fascination is knowing how somebody went, man, I've got this. And then 6 years later, 10 years later, 12 years later, maybe even a month later, it becomes a whole piece. You know, how a word becomes a whole paragraph, how a paragraph becomes a whole book.
Yeah, and I've reflected on this journey a lot, and it's one that, you know, there's a lot of times at certain points I could have just said, that's enough, I've done what I wanted to do, and now I'll do something else. And like I said to you earlier, that I get bored very quickly.
Yeah.
So I've worked for nearly 23 boroughs, 32 projects. I've got no issue leaving work and starting new work.
Yeah.
Whereas my wife, she's been in the same employment for years, and the big struggle is I don't want to leave and apply for another job.
Every
right?
2 years I moved apartment, so I know how.
Yes, right. So I don't tie any roots. I don't really make any friends where I go. You know, it's work hard, move on.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a few friends, but that's only social likes. You know, it's nothing more than pressing like on a few people I've met. So for me, a little history of the Sikhs. Every time I went to a London borough, you can actually go into an archive in that local area, and being Sikh, you Singh and Gaur. Just look up who the Singhs and Gaurs are in the area, who they were in the past. So when I went to Croydon, when I went to Bexley, Lewisham, Southwark, Barnet, Brent, I'm in these areas, I'm delivering community projects, I'm working out their community, I might as well work out what my own community's history is. I haven't worked in Ealing yet, but if I ever worked in Ealing, I'll be there all year.
Right. How many Sikhs and Gaurs have been there?
So Haringey, Tottenham, and you know what, I just found that there's so much Sikh history. And this is in my work, I was doing this. But little history, really. In the 90s, I was explaining that I was a collector, and my cousins were collectors, stamps, coins, that kind of stuff.
That's fine, but how do you get into collecting? I know how I got into collecting.
So the collecting,
I like shiny things, and I was like,
So for me, it was probably my older cousin who lived down the road. His dad had probably kept things, my Babbaji, in my dad's Jajaji, but we had two houses on the same road. So, and he had the full set of encyclopedias, he had Breeder's Digest, so he had a better job than we had in factories in our family. And my uncle went to a boys' school, like a school that he had to go to London for, and they had education in their front room because they had lots of books. and then he had coins, and he had his own stuff from East Africa,
Okay.
and he would show you these things. And if someone shows you one coin, then you look out for it,
Of course.
and you want to get your own one,
Yeah.
right? So that's how the coin collecting started. And then stamps, and then the reading started from actually visiting your uncle's house and just picking up a book and Reader's Digest, where it tells you all these books you can buy and these magazines that come through, you know. And so how do you start with that? That's your influence. It's going to come in your family or your gurdwara, where someone shows you something, you know. And East London at that time, I remember in 1999, some of these images you see around here, they're framed by a certain person, and that person's father was a collector of this type of stuff, and they put an exhibition on at Armgadi Neville Road. And at the time, I thought I was Indian in the 90s. So everyone was an Indian society and Indian. So I had a lot of Gandhi stuff because I'd bought Gandhi stuff in the market. You know, anything that said India either had the flag or something to do with partition or something to do with Gandhi. That's what I saw, you know, and I had lots of it. And then I realised actually through this exhibition there's similar stuff on Sikh items only. You just have to change your perspective and how you look for this stuff.
You search terms.
And well now it's search terms. But at that time, when you go to a guy and they look at you and you say, just show me anything with a turban, not just show me anything Indian.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to make out, are they Sikh turbans or other turbans? I realised later.
Yeah.
But that's how I did it. Just show me things with turbans. I'm only interested in Sikh stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want all this other stuff. And then there were postcards, collectibles, little things. And they were affordable in those days at markets, 50p, 30p, a pound would be like a big deal, you know.
Exactly.
So I just used to pick them up, and my cousins remember that. They remember us going to markets and me dragging them for an afternoon out to markets in East London. And I can't believe it was available. Like, it wasn't a hard find. You just go to the same place every month, and there'd be a military collector, and then you'd have another box, and it'd be full of coins from India, and then, you know, postcards of army regiments. And
so you didn't have a specific item. Mine was coins.
Yeah.
So you didn't have a specific item. Was anything that
I think
the
coins,
Sikh
coins and stamps initially, but the Sikh faith was a Punjabi, a Sikh, someone who I could relate to in printed matter on a newspaper, on a postcard. And then Mr. Bara, he had like the historical stuff, and then it kind of showed me that actually it's available. So then you had to go to better markets. You know, you can't just stay local. You have to go to Notting Hill in those days. And I remember there was a whole box of auction catalogues once, and there was an auction at Sotheby's probably. And you know, at that time it was the Dilip Singh stuff. And they had it sitting there. They had it sitting there, the thing, but it was £10.
What, the actual catalogue?
Yeah, and I was like, that's too much. I only got about £5 with me, so I didn't buy it. But I just thought it'd be available everywhere, you know. But they had it there, you know. And I've got it now. There it is there, you know. So that's £40 now, right?
The Eldon Hall?
Yeah, the Eldon.
Oh,
that's the Christie's Eldon Hall catalogue. So I remember seeing that in the market, thinking I can't afford it. And I went through my youth thinking a lot of things, I've seen them, but I can't afford it, you know, because where is my income going to come from? But the information was there, and it started to connect together. And like I said, I was quite able to retain information quite easily. So it was just another data point in my head, you know, so lots of data points. And then this stuff started to come together when the internet started to launch. And it was much cheaper than it is now in those days. And now
the internet broke the system, didn't it?
Yeah, it broke the system, but it was affordable still for me. You know, postage and packing was a big worry in those days because it felt like it was dead money. But now I'd rather pay for the postage and packing just to get it. You know, and I pay recording most of the time. But I do very few transactions now. And I think, so when I got married, all of this stuff was in boxes. And it was in the loft. In our old house, in my mum's house.
When you say boxes, how many boxes? Because
I've got a massive loft.
But
it wasn't framed as well.
So
it was just loose leaf. And then slowly, as my income started to improve, I just give pieces to Avdar, and he would frame them in the same style. And black frame, light inserts, and nearly everything I'll have will be framed in the same way. And they're just ready for exhibitions, you know, for Gurdwara exhibitions. It's, what I like to do, and Avdar did them himself. Avdar did those exhibitions himself. So I said, do it the same style, but my stuff, if it's got any value to it. And I saw you walked in and you picked something out, which I thought was quite interesting. It's a nice story, because that, to me, when I first saw that, you had to buy that page by page. And it was a lot of money, so that's why I framed it. And now I get that at a fraction of the cost, and I get the whole book, and I get it through international and being able to read French.
Like I said, I've never seen it in print. In fact, PDF, everybody's got one, I've got that. But I've never physically seen one. So.
So I think I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm just in this room now. 6 books of the same one that you've never seen. And it's just one visit to Romford.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's loads of them. There's loads of stuff here in these folders.
You say you started as a kid. So how old would you have been when you started collecting?
I would say
initially you collected the Indian
mid-90s, because I was at Imperial, so I remember going to Notting Hill Market a lot,
Yep.
and just buying things, but generally cheap. And then the internet, 99 onwards, with the AOL dial-up, getting on. And I was just collecting. I wasn't doing anything else on the internet. I was just looking at the stuff and buying whatever came up for very cheap prices. And that's where most of these ones came from. And now I don't buy those because I've got hundreds now in folders. So yes, it would be mid-90s in the markets, late 80s with my cousins in the local area, then London markets, and then the internet early years.
So I'm guessing your ambition with all these was just to collect?
So I thought every item told me a story.
Okay.
And I just, I collected anything that was flat because then I could store it. So at the time there was Chester collectors going around as well.
Massive.
And I was like, what am I going to do with the Chester? Like, my mum's going to tell me off and I don't know where to put it. So I just didn't collect Chesters.
I was always one of those, I was like, I want a Chester. And I was like, I've got a tenner here and these aren't going for like 3, 4, 500 pounds. And then I was like, I want a grant. And then you're on eBay like, yes, I've got the opening bid. I've got 99 bid. Oh, it's shot to £400.
So I was selling a lot of stuff like that, because I was getting rid of my India stuff. And that was helping the PayPal account stay topped up. So if I needed to bid for something, I'd just sell something else, get it, and then buy these. So it was a recycling exercise with inflation because I bought it much cheaper, right? I remember doing that a lot, and I remember one banknote I sold, which was the Khalistan banknotes, and I bought them in Scotland for £5. And the bidding went up to £400, £500, £600. I remember we buying the iPod and then buying loads of these little things with it. I sent it insured delivery to a collector in Holland, and they tried to say they didn't receive it through PayPal, and I was like, no, I know you'd received it, and they went quiet. They overpaid for that. They know they overpaid, but I didn't tell you to bid £600 for something that I bought for a £5, So I kept one. So this is what I would do. I would go to Scotland, go to collectors, go to Devon, buy 2 of things, and then know that one's mine and one will fund Sikh history. And it was nice because my jobs took me to all these places. So I'm not going to get drunk in the evening at a pub. I'm not going to do that. So I would just research. Next morning, find a bookshop, go in. Do that. That's how I did it. Because my work would pay for the journey. And I was working in Middlesbrough, Scotland, wherever. Liverpool, I worked a lot. And those collectors' markets, they had things. That were Punjabi or Sikh. And if you tell them, they know. If you say I'm looking for items from Punjab or Sikh, then I knew people who used to fly out to India and get them, and then come bring them back and then sell them to me. I was like, I went to India, I can't wait.
I've got fun,
So, but then they taught me how to do it, so then I used to buy them in India as well.
So did you like collect a load of contacts of collectors' markets? So if they ever found anything, would they like?
Yeah, they can. I've still got it. There's a card book there. They just still give me first refusal on things that may be on interest to Mr. Singh down here, who will readily pay you. And that's all I found. And I don't drink, don't smoke, don't do a lot of lottery gambling. I do a little bit, but not a lot. So this was the way of just like my vice. This is like a secret vice. Is just collecting this stuff. Now the problem I have is these artifacts tell a story, and that's how little history started. Because as I collected, I started teaching Punjabi at Kamalpreet Punjabi School in 2003. 2003. So now we're getting into got my first job, earning good money, getting bonuses, so that kind of thing. Oh, probably.
Maybe 25, 27.
Yeah. So it would have been 25. Yeah, that's it. So 2003, and then what happened? 26. What happened then was Punjabi school grew very quickly. So we Ilford, lots of Sikh families. We had a school which was downstairs of the Granthis house, and a lot of recruits. So we were churning kids 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock classes because it's just a house. And what Baji was doing was the application form was never going to ask you about educational needs or anything like that. And no Punjabi parents ever going to tell you your kid needs support. or have.
As far as I'm concerned, I'll drop them off, I'll pay you the money, teach them Punjabi.
That's it, they're not even paying the money, we were a free one, right? So they were just going shopping.
That's even better.
Yeah, so they were just putting their kids with us. And I wanted to help do that. And I think that's where I learnt my trade, because what happened is Baji would go around and get the kids who were the naughty kids. They weren't naughty, they were just difficult for teachers from India to handle.
The way to teach them was in a different way.
Yeah, so they would come to me, and because I could speak Essex or from Romford, and I could maybe talk at their level rather than talk down to them, we could just sit down and say, okay, 15 minutes we're going to do this, and 15 minutes we did do that. Not an hour and 15 minutes after saying 15 minutes, which is what teachers, struggle with, So I just divided my 2.5 hour lesson into 15-minute slots, and I needed to have variety in that slot. You can't keep teaching part for 2.5 hours, right? So we do 15 minutes, then we stop, then we do 15, and then all this stuff started to become a teaching aid, because it helped me kill 15 minutes. Bring a coin in, let's talk about the coin. What do you see? How does it look like? What's written in Punjabi? Work it out. Where's the order on this coin? And that was good. Let's take this newspaper. What does it look like? He's got a bug on. Is he a soldier? That 15 minutes killed that one. Take a newspaper. So these became teaching aids. And I was like, this is good. This is making me easy to prepare for lessons, because I don't have to do all the page 37, work out the answers at home and then take them into Punjabi school. Don't have to check spellings, I don't have to do anything, right? I just take in my stuff and chill,
Did you have some interesting dialogue with the kids?
Did
you get some, it's interesting when you talk to kids, because they will bring up a viewpoint or something that you've not considered.
So these are interesting. I showed them a photograph of Sikhs building the Panama Canal. Okay. The Panama Canal was built by the Spanish, 1850s. They needed hard workers. They reached out to the Sikhs who had a reputation, and they shipped them over to dig a canal. And they put them there, and there's a Gurdwara in Panama City, and there's a Panama Canal. So I put this post out thinking this is a great bit of history that I'm going to tell the kids, and they've never heard of it before, blah, blah, blah. And little kid stood up, he said, you're lying. I said, Sing, what are you talking about? I wasn't a singing little one with a phone on. So you're lying, that's not people. My dad's a builder, and he wears boots when he digs, and none of those things are wearing any boots, they're just standing in the mud. I was like, how did you spot that, literally, they were probably on a break. It's just a group of Sikhs. They weren't actively digging, but it was a photo from Panama. I knew that. But I just looked at the kid. I thought, they're so sharp. They notice everything. So I'm telling a story of digging. He's going to my dad digs, and he has to wear boots, health and safety, and all of that. So you're lying to me. They're not diggers, right? And these little things then helped me. Like, how do I tell these stories to a young audience? And all of these stories were for the young, but actually, as we set up a little history, it's the same stories I'm telling.
That's what's going to capture your imagination. You can't go into depth, especially when you're trying to convey 1,000 different things. It's like bang, bang, bang.
It always like you've got snippets. I call it a little history, because they're little bite-sized manageable chunks, because for kids it keeps their interest, for parents it stops them getting bored, for the elders they can tell their own story in that same snippet. So that's how the history worked. And so I did this from 2003 to 2009. And then from 9 to 13, we always had a meeting at the Gurdwara about camp. Now, camp day 4, you know what it is. It's Chessington or it's whatever.
Alton Towers for us.
For you, right? So it's Chessington or Thorpe Park in the UK, in London. And my push to them was, people around here have money. They all go to Chessington and Thorpe Park anyway in the summer. So why do we have to spend all the camp money of £2.5 grand to go there again? And I had some supporters around the audience, and over the years we managed to turn them into Sikh history tours instead. Kids just want to go with their friends anyway. So we took them to Brighton, then the Pavilion, Sikh history tour of Kent. We took them to Shepherd's Bush, or took them to Guru Manu Granth, or took them to the aquarium, but with a bit of my tours in it. And then the older group, one afternoon would be one of my tours. They would just come with me. So I was testing it. At that time, it's called Garamsara Sikh History Tours. That's what it was called. And the Gurdwara were very supportive, and they allowed me to take a group with, people. And all I was doing, I remember, was testing my product, grounding it in proper challenges, travel, CRB checks, DBS, all that. all of that stuff, you know, English. I do the tours in English, Punjabi, French and Italian I can do it in, right?
Okay.
So I can switch languages when I'm doing the tour, but no one's challenging me on the Italian or French yet.
Okay.
So I can say whatever I want, they don't know, right? Right? But Punjabi English is fine because it's a Punjabi school tour.
Of course.
So if we're not speaking Punjabi on the tour, what are we doing, you know?
Yeah.
So that was happening. And then I was like reaching out to two big organisations in the UK at the time who'd received lottery funding. Are we allowed to say who they are? So there was.
If you want to mention.
No, everyone knows who they are.
Yeah.
There was only two in Anglo-Sikh space, you know.
Yeah.
There was ASH at the time and UKPHA.
Yeah.
And me being like the corporate bunda I was at that time, I was very formal on email, sending them little snippets of histories I discovered and stories and expecting a reply.
Yeah.
And I don't know how busy they are, but it took me about 2 or 3 years to get ASH's response.
Yeah.
3 years I was waiting, and I just thought I could work under them.
Yeah.
They would put the banner, they're doing Anglo-Sikh Heritage
Why
Trail,
not? Yeah.
mine's the London Trail at the time. And what I'd actually done is, through the camps, is developed the Monopoly board for Sikh history. So every location on the Monopoly board, I've been there,
Yeah.
I've explored it, and I've connected it to Sikh history through a building, an artefact, and that. So some people knew that I was giving this lecture on Monopoly tours in London.
Yeah.
Now, Monopoly tours in London are generally a pub at each
Yeah,
point.
of course it is.
Right?
It's like the old Central line we used to get off.
Yeah,
That was Christmas Eve for the police.
that's what the university kids used to do, Monopoly tour. So I turned it into a Sikh history tour based on Monopoly.
Yeah.
Regent Street, Oxford Street, and the other one in green. What is the third one? Regent Street, Oxford Street, Bond Street. They've all got Sikh history. Right, so Regent Street, you'll see the Maharaja Ranjit Singh's Shastar there on display at the Wallace Collection. On Oxford Street, at the base of it, is the British Museum with the Star Bunga. And Bond Street, you'll see the Patiala necklace in the shop for Sotheby's.
I don't know.
Right, so all of this is just those three, right? So Vine Street, Marlborough Street, and the orange ones, they're all to do with law and order. There's a police station in each one of those, Bow Street, Magistrate Courts, etc. All got a Sikh history link as well, right? If you go to Trafalgar Square, the Strand and Fleet Street, all three of them are Sikh history. Fleet Street, all of these were printed just off Fleet Street, on the Strand actually, right?
Okay, before I get to
Yeah.
any of this, how did you
Yeah.
get to know all this history?
By going there, I'm
So,
trying to get up.
this one,
Yeah.
so I know you went with you did stuff with the kids,
No, but what
and
I'm
you've got
saying,
all this, you've got all these things around here that provide an element of history. But then you've engaged in finding out the physical history around
yeah,
it.
definitely.
How
what
did
they
you
call
do
it-
that?
So say for example the Old Kent Road.
Yeah.
So I went to the Old Kent Road. I'm looking around thinking I don't think there's much Sikh history
So
in
worth
the
£2
Old Kent Road.
on the
Huh?
board.
Worth
So worth
£2.
£2 on
So
the
this is
board.
going to be a struggle,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
The Old Kent Road. So I'm looking around. I've worked in Southwark.
Yeah.
I've worked on the Aylesbury estate. So I knew the area, so I went there again. And I had a look, keep looking. And there's a church there called the Pembroke College Mission.
Okay.
It's just off the Old Kent Road in Walworth. And the Ash, they had a lecture once on someone called Charles Freer Andrews, who I call an eyewitness to Sikh history.
Okay.
So that's an independent lecture. He saw the morchas.
Okay.
He saw the Guru Ka Bagh morcha.
Guru Ka
He
Bagh
wrote
morcha,
eyewitness. It's Charles
The
Freer
Agali
Andrews, the Agali morcha, 1921, 22, 23. He was honestly reporting all of that back to the UK. It's printed in newspapers. So I knew that. Actually, when he finished at Cambridge as a theology graduate, he served for 1 year or 2 years before his India exam at the Pembroke College Mission, just off the Old Kent Road, at the church, where when I was working on the Aylesbury estate, I knew the person, because that church was a community hub. So he's linking all that history together and saying, okay, Old Kent Road, here's how it links to Sikh history, because of this person. And it's the art of telling a story, and I think that's really something that, when I do my work in data, it's quite boring. It's sitting in Excel, working out stories and assessing risks from different people.
Yeah.
But these are the real stories running around in my head, It's how do I tell that story? So that's just one example, but I've done that for every single location on the Monopoly board. Trained it for 2 years at Punjabi camp as a lecture that you give. So you're not just going to do a 3 golden rules lecture every year, right? These are the 3 gold. I think if every kid in East London knows the 3 golden rules, because every lecturer who comes, these are the 3 golden. So I had to innovate, So I had to, and then we played Monopoly. So you land, I tell you the Sikh history. They'll never forget it now, So that's what we did. So then I thought, how do I launch this? So we went to speak to Ashton again, I'm going to get clobbered by Waddingtons by putting any of this on the internet. You know, and then Mandeep saw the lecture at Barking. He said, no, I'll help you. You don't have to put Monopoly on it. Just put each card that looks similar.
Yeah.
And then you start putting it. So he helped me build a website from Barking Gurdwara in the early days. And he's now at Gurdwara Aid. He does that.
Okay.
He's got, and he was a nice guy. And he helped me bring my work outside of the Sikhs, outside of the Gurdwara Punjabi school space.
Yeah.
The first one who believed in me and said, actually, leave the website to me then. If you're struggling, just send me what you want on a website and I'll put it up.
Yeah.
So I started putting the histories up on the website. It wasn't a flashy website, it was just a WordPress site and it was doing its job. But for me, I had a website.
Exactly.
Okay. And then a local neighbour here, I said, look, I'm struggling to work out how to do these tours. I've researched everything. I work in London all the time. I have breaks, I walk around, I've found these churches, I've found all this stuff. And now, you know, we've got 108 locations. I've got 8 different tours in London, 8 different walking tours. I do specialist tours, people who just want Uddham Singh. I can show you everything on Uddham Singh right in London. It's a long tour because you have to go location to location like he did. It's not a neat walking tour, but if you want it, I'll do it. You know. We have a Sikh women's tour. The Sikh women memorialised in London. Sikh women, not Punjabi, Sikh. And when we see they're here in London, they're memorialised. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them I've got on a tour. I've got their art in galleries. I've got pictures of them in museums. Sikh women, Punjabi women. I've got the police officers at Scotland Yard. We've got in Parliament Square, images of them in Parliament Square. Caxton Hall is associated with Sikh women before Uddham Singh, you know.
Well, how did, for me, I still can't fathom
how you do it. It's weird.
I think for me, I get to London and I go, right, it's Harrods, there's a cheese shop, there's this, there's that.
I think
go to Joe Malone. That's what.
But I think the way
what I mean, for me, it's how have you gone from?
So you
here,
know,
what can I see?
So you know when you went to the Trocadero?
Yeah.
You went to the Trocadero. You see those horses with that fountain that everyone takes photos of. Near there is Coventry Street.
Yeah.
So on that corner at Coventry Street in 1914, Sophia Dilip Singh and Indian women used to sell little pins. That's the location of that photograph, right? So if you can put that context with a physical geography, this sort of story comes to life.
Yeah.
So we do this in France. When we go to France on a battlefields tour, I've got images of the Sikh soldiers lying out there, the stars and drying them. I'll take them back to the same riverbank. I say, here it is, 100 years on. You sit in the same position. Now that kid will never forget that he went there and he sat in the same position where a forefather sat.
You don't forget because it's the same as when as a kid you research the lives of the gurus.
Yeah.
And then you go to Trundle for the first time. And you go to
Punjab
for the first time. Where you go to, those are things that etch in my mind. You'll never forget.
So for me, with the young people, it's about creating an experience that makes it alive for them, and then they'll never forget.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what I get from it, but I do get something from it because I can see it that they're never going to forget.
Yeah.
I'm watching them, and I can see that this is going to have an impact on their life.
Yeah.
They're either going to value the style a lot more, or they're going to care for it a lot more, like these soldiers cared for it. You know, the way they do Kirtan in the all this I see on the tours, and that's why I do them. Yeah. I can't just put Facebook posts up.
No, I understand.
I have to see people learning and believing in, and then saying, actually, you know what, I'm going to go home and read some more. And I get all of those books are feedback. I think it'd be really good, buddy, if you pass in the books and just flick through the feedback. And I think it really kind of, to me, I make them write it in their own handwriting. I don't care how scruffy it is, I'll read it, but it has to be real feedback, you know. And then I
saw the ones from university the other day.
One said, this is the best lecture I've been to today, why I concentrate. But you've been to 3 lectures there, at the end of the day, you said you didn't fall asleep with one.
Yeah, but this is about say something that they were able to engage with the content that was provided.
But to me, at Warwick on Tuesday, to me it took me back to Punjabi school. It's the same, to me it's the same thing, the same questions, the same order.
The same lesson plan.
It's always Man United, it's always Chelsea or Arsenal first. They get those stories out of the way because I link them to places. Every history is linked to a place, you know. So I thought I was doing geographical history, the history of a certain geography. But other academics said it's also social history as well because the stories I'm telling. You know, whereas I thought I'm just telling you the history of a place. They said, no, you're also telling the history of people in that place. So that's fine. And that's the two kind of areas at university. Apparently, it's quite growing and big. Geographical history and social history, you know.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know about that stuff.
Yeah.
I just thought, I turned up at Trafalgar Square, look around, this is Sikh, can you believe it's been there since 1850, you know. And we didn't even know. We just, you know, that was the reason I produced one of my maps was we did Vaisakhi in the square every year, and they would board up the statues, and then people put their langar plates on the boarding, you know, and pile up the rubbish. If you took that hoarding off, it says, under Havelock statues, it says, soldiers, your labours, your privations and your suffering will not be forgotten by a grateful country.
Yeah.
So the story behind it is 1857, where the Sikh regiment, mutiny, they protected all these women and children, and Havelock stood up and he said, you know, because they prevented these women and children being harmed in Lucknow. He said, soldiers, your labours, your privations, your suffering and your valour will not be forgotten by a grateful country. Now that was recorded in the diary of James Altham, who's witnessed this. And his statue is just down the road. Okay. So he's at Northumberland Avenue. So you've got Altham, who you can say he said this, memorialised in Trafalgar Square. You walk around the back of the statue and it said the Oswald Regiment of Sikhs. Oh, yeah. You know, and that's been in Trafalgar Square for so long. Yet whenever we did Vaisakhi in the square or whatever,
I go on feed the pigeons and walk away, man. I didn't even know that.
Been there.
And I saw, because like you said with the geographical history and the social history, I look at a couple of other sites which are very similar, where they do London talks and they're like, this used to be an old police station, it's in Trafalgar Square, and I was like,
oh, the little one.
Yeah, I never knew that was
that's right next to the Sikh history. Yeah, you used to keep an eye on pickpockets from there.
And that's what I never knew, you know, that sort of thing. So for me, you know, it's I could never understand how much research or how much time must have gone in for you to go, this is this.
So you know, there's a Keaton called Ravindra Singh Ramtain in West London.
Yeah.
He had the same problem as well. He was like, Singh, how do you make up these stories all the time? I said, Singh, I'm not making. And he said, do you think it's just the universe works for you? And I said, I don't think it works for me. Because I'm looking for this stuff. Yes. I'm walking those streets, looking for connecting spaces to a story that's based on reading all of this stuff. Yeah. The stories are already here. I'm just trying to connect them. Yeah. And you know, the team's growing now. There are people who read. Yeah. There are kids who are reading out there, and my team is quite young. Sure. So when they come out on my tours, they take over on something. And I said, don't worry, I'm here. Yeah. Like, and you'll grow your confidence. When I started my tours, we started in 2014.
So you're saying what 2014 you contacted Ash?
No, so before that, so 2010s, and you know, I was struggling to see how do I deliver this. I thought I needed a big logo, a company behind me, you know, someone.
It just took me 9 years to make a logo.
Well, I could, you know, but I just thought, because I recognised, you know, UKPHA and Ash, they were the big ones in play, and I just wanted to do the stories. I didn't want to run an organisation.
Yes.
You know? And then I was advised by someone, look, if you're quality, don't worry that they're not coming to you or they're not responding to your emails or whatever. He said, just do it. If you're quality, they will come to you.
We're knocking on your door.
Yeah, and they're knocking on my door, and they were. And you know what? And that was probably a bit of bad stuff on my side. We had the likes, we had the follows when I was doing my posts and all that in the early years. But the moment they said, do you want to collaborate? Then I didn't respond, because I felt I knocked on your door for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I totally agree.
You know, and it was bad of me as well, because I see they do a lot, and you know, parts of my team work with them as well, and that's good. And you know, I've got a lot of respect for the work they do. Yeah. But I don't know if they've got an inbox of 100 emails a day, but I know I don't get that. So I know anyone who contacts me, they get a personal response. You know? And I just felt I had something, but how do I tell that to someone who I don't know? You know. How do I present that? So I didn't know, but as Singh Saab said to me, just do it. If you're quality, just call it what you want to call it, do it yourself. Yeah. But then I thought there's hundreds of Sikh organisations who are just so small that, you know, we have no structure, backup, accounts, this, that and the other. So I worked meticulously to make sure my organisation works to that standard that I do, my projects. You know? So we do European tours, we do UK tours, and the London tours just raise the money for me to be able to offset the risk of a European tour. That was the aim. Yeah. You know, and just meet so many interesting people. So I used to think I needed to know all of this before I could do a tour. Now I can present a fraction of this, and the audience actually helped me learn. Yeah. You know, so we.
Somebody will bring something in.
No, they've done their own reading. Yeah. They've read some of these books. So they come on a tour because they know something.
Yeah.
And then they add to the talk. So it's not just me talking. And now we've got Hakiran and the Junni who take over speaking parts.
Yeah.
And then I've got a panel of experts and authors, so I'll invite them.
Yeah.
Why do I need to do all the talking? I'm reading your book, so why don't you just present it yourself? They enjoy it and they get to sign a few books and sell them, you know, and I just get to get a bit more exposure. But I've read these books and now these people respond to my emails.
No, it's fine. A little history of Sikhs is not just London, though, is it? Like you say, you're doing your.
So
I've seen that you were doing one towards Gravesend, Kent, obviously places like that.
Yeah.
Again, I know you were going into 32 boroughs around London.
That's how it started, yeah, but now it's UK.
I was about to say you're everywhere now.
Oxford, Kent is interesting because when I saw the Lahore gun in Oxford, the Satluj gun, it's an amazing cannon and it's kept in Maidstone Museum, 20 minutes from Gravesend Gurdwara, right? So everyone goes to Gravesend Gurdwara.
Yeah.
I think they should just have a signpost saying if you want to learn a little history, you just go down to the museum. They all know me there now with the Singh who comes down. They just want visitors.
Yeah.
You know, they just want visitors. It's a barracks kind of museum.
Yeah.
And the highlight of their museum is it. And then you know what? In the cabinets, they've got shastras picked up on the battlefields in the Sikh court.
Okay.
They've got, they say, an Akali, they've got a bowl, probably belonging to an Akali Sikh, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a bhatta.
Yeah, but still, isn't it?
But for me...
It's the fact that it's a bhatta from...
No, but for me, I know what it is. But for them, they picked it up on the battlefield. It's shiny, we'll take that, you know. And they've got the blood-soaked jacket of Lieutenant Grimes, who was struck by a Sikh, and all the blood seeped in. And they've kept it for all those years, and it's in there.
In Maidstone.
You know, in Maidstone Museum. So that's it. But to be honest, I think every cathedral has got a monument now. I think Tony Paul went to Norfolk. He saw one in Sandringham and Norwich. I've got Salisbury on there. I've got St Paul's. It's got lots of Punjab stuff in there. 3 memorials to Punjab in St Paul's. And until 1967, the main pulpit from where the priest speaks until now was from Punjab. So where he stands up and starts giving his sermon, at the bottom of it, it's got the Punjab Frontier Force, blah, 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 all written on the bottom of it. And now they've just moved it, you know, because they've got another pulpit. And all these stories come together, you know, and it's just like Punjab was a rich kingdom.
Yes, it was.
With rich crafts and rich things that the West wanted.
Yeah.
So they brought it all here and they used it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think if that can unlock a story for a young kid or an adult and it brings them closer to our heritage and then ultimately gives them a little bit of confidence so they can keep on a learning journey without thinking, I've got to fit in. You don't have to fit in, you know. They value the stuff that they've got of ours and we just need to learn about it. It's not we're ignorant, it's just we're not exposed to it.
Exactly.
You know?
And that's the problem. There's a lack of exposure.
Yeah.
The more that, like I said, the exposure wasn't there until V&A came in, and then everybody's like, right, still there. And I was talking to Singh today. I was like, February, I'm taking the kids to the V&A. I probably won't now. Now that you told me about
you need to go wider than that.
Now that you told me about the, you know, I'd go by Marlborough Vine just for that, because the kids play Monopoly or play with that's going to
do that.
But something like that, I didn't know about. It's the exposure.
So in the first thing, I used to call them like Monopoly tours.
Yeah.
But I just got so worried about Waddington sending me a letter saying, you know, we want 25 grand of this. So I spoke to a lawyer about, can they even, you know, there's a history of the Sikhs. There's a little history of the world back there. Yeah. And he said, no, they can't trademark little. Little's a word you could use, you know. So I had to get all of that done through a lawyer, and then when I went, then you've got the confidence to go into the space, you know. But the one piece of advice I did have at the time, and I ignored it, was they said, if you want to turn this into a viable product with, you know, less marketing, is go a little history of the Punjab. Yeah. I said, why? And they said, because then you'll get the Muslims and the Hindus and and then you don't have to worry. And I was like, no, there's enough things that are going to support this, there's enough Sikhs are going to be interested, and it's a struggle.
Of course it is.
It's a real, everyone knows, right, how hard it is. And now I think, if I did call it a little history of the Punjab, and I did widen, because I did the Indian history before as well, that's all my history, it's fine. But I wanted to be a specialist in Sikhs, because that's what I'm confident in.
No, I understand. And I think, I was listening to one of Rambling's podcasts, and when he says that, one of the mother says, you know, we have this out there, but Sikhs are quite happy to drop 15 grand on a number plate.
That I 100% agree with.
Totally, I totally agree. Like I said, I've seen it with, they are willing to spend a lot of money on something like that. When you go, this book is £9.99, they go, Sing, no, we did like that. Bunch more of the, and you're like, It cost me £9 to put it together.
Yeah. So you know what I say to people is on the tours when you get your instructions, it's just like I'm going to change it this year. I'm going to say to give whatever your number plate thinks you should be giving, because I just say give what you can. But I'm just saying if you're driving around in an S-Class Merc with a whatever number plate, then I expect you
with 3 shopping bags, which you shop around.
But you know what? I've never forced anyone to pay for the tours. I've just said have an envelope with you.
Yeah. Give
it to me on the tour if you want to. If you don't give it to me, it doesn't matter. No one else is going to know if you gave it or not. There's no show or booking in or ticket system.
But there should be. Right.
But you know
I'm following 3 or 4 other people who are doing tours around London.
Yeah.
They do them 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Even if they get 2, 3, 4 people, they charge. Why not?
No, I charge, and that advice I have.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when I come back and I put the envelopes in there and we count them, I get more than the suggested donation.
Yeah.
That's fine. But what I feel is that travelling into London can be expensive.
Yeah.
Right, for a family, if you've travelled in, then I don't want to add £40, £20, £30 to your fee if you feel that that's a barrier. If you don't feel it's a barrier, because V&A is free, everything else is free. My time will be covered by the people I know who's going to be in there. And I do, touch wood, I do cover my costs and I do raise further surpluses which I put into other stuff. But I've touched wood, until now, it's never been a problem for me. For the other people in my team, if they want to go independent, then my advice to them would be charge with this. But because I do consulting and coaching and this is my hobby.
Yeah, I understand. Because like some books are a hobby, snippets are a hobby.
And snip,
But
I do want to tell value.
But I understand that. I understand that because my lodge is taking care of me on one side anyway, so that's okay.
Yeah. But I have the professionalism that everything's accounted for, everything's paid for, everything's paid for up front with people, and donations are made to the places we go.
Yeah.
And when you've got 25 people in a group of good income, you do raise £250, £300 per trip. It's not everything's on my list.
Yeah.
Children are free. Anyone on benefits, anyone is free for every category you want it to be, and I still get 250, 300 quid for 4 hours work, right? So what I'm saying to kids now is, just learn to read.
Yeah.
I'm not under license, but do it yourself. Why do I need to go out? I'd rather go to Trafalgar Square, I'll go west, you go east, we'll meet back in 4 hours, you bet your money.
Yeah.
But I want them to have that confidence. I think it's the best job in the world,
It's you're like walking, talking.
Why do you want to work in Tesco?
It's walking, talking your story. It's just amazing.
And you go to Oxford, the students do street tours all the time.
Yeah.
You bump into them all the time. So why are our kids not doing it?
Yeah, and I totally agree, and that's one of the things. I'd love for you to go to these little areas and go. Yeah. Here's a 7-second TikTok video which you took onto all screens. And go, here I am on Old Kent Road. Here I am on here.
And I wish I've got 5 TB drives there full of all my stuff that needs sorting out, which is fine. But I think now my younger team members and Urban Agalli, he does a lot of my media. If I just instruct him, then he'll do it, and that's fine. I say that's what I want, and that's what I want out of this. I don't want to be doing every little thing. We're a team.
That's right. How do you get over to the next generation?
Yeah, but they've got the. So what I say to them, if you come on 3 tours, you'll learn it. Then that's your induction done. Yeah. Then you'll work out where you want to fit into the tour story. If you want to speak, you can speak. If you want to plan, you can plan. If you want to write, you can write. There is so much content out there. I'm telling you that. And I don't even touch Sikh. I'm only touching what's physical geographies. Yeah. But it all leads to these. I'm uncovering all this stuff at the National Liberal Club, and I'm trying to challenge to say, did our grants inform Liberal policy in the late 1800s and early 1900s? Because they were clearing slums. They were investing in education. Okay. The Liberal Party. First Prime Minister for 4 terms, Gladstone. Yeah. So he started to have a liberal society. Well, where Punjab was a liberal kingdom. That's it, right? And they understood that from 1849. They had all the paperwork, they had everything. And they saw how it run. They saw the framework already. Yeah. So if you had a crime policy, you'd go to Chicago, see what's working and nick it. That's what we do. That's what happens. You go there, you see how they do it, take a template, adapt it for your working policies. Yes, if you wanted to alleviate the poor, then you say, well, actually in Lahore, a very educated kingdom, lots of establishments, university, and everyone was educated because we had the Qaeda system in the villages. So when the Liberal Party started to clear the slums in East London and get sponsorship for these, it's the same kind of ethos. We need an educated workforce to alleviate you out of poverty. So I'm beginning to form some theories on this. And to be honest, I don't want them to be kind of just pushed away. No, that definitely didn't happen. Then why is that painting up there?
Yeah.
Why is the leap sing up there? You know, next to Queen Victoria at the Liberal Club.
Yeah.
There's 100 other Liberals all the way up. You know,
Yeah.
but when you get to the top, you see the leap sing, Captain Colin Mackenzie, Prince Albert, and Queen Victoria, right at the top of this staircase, which I have good access to now. You know, and all these theories, and that's going even deeper
Yeah.
and deeper and deeper. So when does this stop? When does our UK Sikh story?
Yeah.
You know, and then even if I could relate it back and say, well, actually, no one's changed anything in the Guru Granth Sahib, and maybe these people were taking items from it and learnings from it. That's for me a challenge.
Yeah.
That's what I want to get to. But you know, that I will get to it. It's just where in the journey can I start to ask the right questions to the right people and look for the evidence. But it's been there in my mind when I'm uncovering this stuff. Can I connect it back to Sikhi? Because they knew Sikhi. I think they understood the psychology of it.
Yeah.
They were trying to work out in World
you
War
saw
One.
that with, you saw that with the works that were coming out from Cunningham and Macaulay and
Definitely,
people like that, and
yeah.
they were going, hang on, if we look at what sociology is today, they were looking for the frameworks of education, family,
Yeah.
you know, and group. What we look at today in society, they were looking at those sorts of things and trying to implement those in other areas, and they saw how it worked.
Yeah. And the other one, I think, you know, I think a lot, the thing that I never learned about our gurus was that they were not society reformers only, they were also architects of towns and cities, right? And, you know, and an order and a structure.
Yeah.
In what I work in regeneration.
Yeah.
You know, when I go to my projects, it's no different to what a Gurudwara does in a community.
Yeah.
You look after the hunger aspect, the social aspect, the support aspect, everything we do in a Gurudwara, probably people do in churches without the langar, is what they're trying to translate in a plan that they say we don't have, you know, we're not a religious country, but actually all the fabric of it is coming from the same roots, right? You know, so to me, I'm going into a poor area in London, they're saying, oh, we have to fix the school, then we have to do this, and I say, yeah, but that's exactly what we would normally do in part of our faith, and we've been demonstrating that to you here anyway for the last 70, 80 years, you know. Every Gurudwara in East Africa had a social provision.
Yeah, because my mum grew up, they were born in Dar es Salaam, raised in Dar es Salaam. They'd go to the Gurudwara was the school, it was the
dispensaries,
everything.
Yeah.
We'll pick up ribbon on this eel, the women were doing everything, and everything was done in there.
Yeah, and then then that East Africa then came to the UK, and the Gurudwaras that I went to, why would you have a sports club there? But they knew there was a social fabric of benefit to it, not just and a Punjabi school, and a women's group for this, that, and you know, every Gurudwara's got something.
Yeah.
You know, an elderly centre is what most of them.
Yeah, everyone's got a daycare centre, bring the elderly, you deal with them.
Which is, you know, and then that's the projects I'm trying to do. So I've got blueprints, you know, but why is it not in the fabric of other faiths to have that social structure around it? Because if I went to the Old Kent Road, they didn't want to build it around the church. The church is a community space.
Yeah.
The government's going to give you everything else around it. That's because they're saying there's not a lot of Catholics or Christians there, you know. Or they don't want to walk into the church to access a service. Whereas we're still grounded to Sikhi. We're going to go to the Gurudwara naturally. So if we can access the
that's
service.
where we go towards that. There's a pull towards it.
That's,
with regards to your talks, I know you've mentioned quite a few of them. Did you just? Is it just something that just comes naturally to you? You know, you go to Kent. I say I go to Kent. First thing I saw was the statue of the soldier, and I was like, well, okay, I'm on my way to the Gurdwara, I want to stop there.
Yeah, Graveship.
And I knew what that was, and then I'm just like, what else is there? And I didn't know.
So Mates, then they got Dover Castle's got Sikh cannons there. Kent is littered with graves of all these people from India, officers. They're buried in graveyards in Kent because they came to the Garden of England to retire.
Yeah.
So they came to Kent and they passed away. And I think I found the grave of the founder of Lialpur.
Okay.
Lyle, he's buried there, which is Faisalabad now. He's buried there, and his story of why they called it Lialpur. Yeah, you know, all Kent's got a lot as well. So Oxford's got a lot. Got a lot.
For me, there's so much out there. Yeah. Have you documented it yourself?
Right. So the way the stories are going. We need to document. So I started, you know, with the Sikh Studies Conference in the UK, Lalli and Mansab.
Yeah, they do.
But actually, it was Kamalpreet's London Sikh Conference, 2014.
Okay.
So I started Little History 17th of October 2013, changed it from Garamsar Sikh History to Australia.
Yeah.
And there was a conference in London at Imperial College. And it was the first time I started to write these stories down. And it was probably a scruffy paper, but it got through, and I went to present. There weren't that many academics there, but the people that were there were like the powerhouses now. You know, Abindajit was there.
Guru Singh Man, Rajat Singh Lally.
Lally was there. They were the three, but then they had Bashora Singh flying to do the speech. Kamalpreet was there. Satnam Singh from Denmark. So they were all there. And Jasjit was there.
Jasjit was saying, who's the Singh from Leicester? Kartar Singh was there.
So that was a London one, and the reason they did a London one was probably a couple of people's idea was they needed, say, one in London. It only happened once. But I got a slot on there. And I got a slot, and I started to put my photos up and start to tell a few Sikh history in London stories. And the response was okay, and it was good. I mean, obviously a couple of people followed up. But then came the Warwick conference. So then I wrote it up better, just Sikh history in Chelsea. Because I thought, let me just start in Chelsea. Then I'm going to do 32 boroughs. Every borough is going to be a paper. And then it was going to get published, and then the book didn't happen. But the conference, again, I felt it wasn't well attended. You know? And I'm a tour company, so why can't I get people to come, to it? But it wasn't. I think the people are all trying to do it in their spare time, if they've got any spare time, and they don't. And then they went on the Sikh channel and other channels, and they got more people. So you saw the conference grow over the years. So I saw that, but I still found that it's not being documented. Me telling an audience of 100 people, a few of which might be interested, is not getting me what I need. So I headed off to America. And I presented in America at the Jakarta conference at Stanford University 2 years ago. It's an amazing one. It's a community-based one. It's at Stanford University. And I went and I just paid for my ticket, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to write this up properly. I recycled that one, added to it. And a style of writing started to emerge because it's now at Stanford, so I've got to be careful. And the audience was 3 times bigger, much fuller. I was the second person on, and the whole day I took a whole display of stuff to America with me. I had a table outside. So if I'm coming just for a 1 hour lecture, that's fine. I might as well make it real for the kids. And I had a lot of engagement. Met the Sikh Foundation, who were in the front row. Dr. Nirvigar Singh, Santa Cruz, met him. Had a word, and have been published 2 papers now, Chelsea and Westminster. Awesome. I'm writing Tower Hamlets at the moment, and then I might just do South London as one wrap up to try and cut my workload. But
I think it would be a for me. I'd buy your publication 100%. If
I
do publication,
rather
than paper. If you had.
So what they said to me, if I do a publication, then I produce a book. If I produce a book, I can't do a publication because the book's already out in the market. So I thought if I just do the chapters. They're basically chapters, and Urban Agali will turn it into a book,
that's what you want to do.
That's what we're going to do, right? So that's the plan. But they're just going to be guidebooks, little guidebooks, £5, £10 guidebooks. If you're walking around, here's the photos. Here's the
definitely.
It's like a Lonely Planet guidebook.
Like the old A to Zs that we used to.
Yeah, but also we're starting to make them as Google Maps. So all of our research snippets, 70 to 100 words. So you can just download it on Google, follow the route. It's my walking tour, and just see
Not followed by an app.
So this is all the future. Now that depends on the team, and I keep saying I just want to do the history, because rather than spend all night trying to work out that, I just want to read one of these books and do the history. So if the team keeps working, and I do pay my teams, that's quite important. I think all my teams get paid for their work. Because I just felt it's not Seva for me, it's an organisation.
They're curry there now. They're curry there.
And these people, they're young.
Time, so you want to give them something
and they're young,
push themselves forward, propel themselves.
And they're young, so they need to learn that there's a value for their work.
Of course there is,
and I'm in a position to offer them that. You know? So I do that, and I can't take on loads of stuff. If you want to start, the people start, their voluntary expenses get paid, and that's just something personal, because I've seen a lot of projects run out of steam because the workforce dies away. Because for a kid, coming into London when you're 18, you've got to pay £7.20 for the day to come in and out of London, and then buy lunch there and all that stuff. They're not going to say it to me, but I know, what it would have been for me 20 years ago.
Hit your pocket at that age as well, when you're not earning or whatever.
Exactly, and if you get a day out in London that's covered, you're going to come back again, right? So,
of course.
So it's like a strategy for that. And then a lot of people give me a lot of positive comment without follow-up, So in the early days, I used to do a lot of planning for people on request. So now I've learned to play tennis, which is like, you want a talk from me, can you do this? I give the ball back to you. When you got this and this and this, then come back to me, and they don't come back to me. That's fine.
That's fine.
I know a lot of
But you got to test the water out and to see what.
Yeah, I said, okay, so if it's a 30-person tour, can you fix the date, get a commitment from them, register, send it to me in Excel, and I'll develop the tour.
Yeah.
But I'm not doing your recruitment for your tour.
Yeah.
If you're telling me you want to buy a recruitment of a delivery of a tour.
Yeah.
When it's my tour, why don't you just come to my tour? That I've got the risk, of no one turning up.
Yeah.
So they don't want to come on my tour. They want their own personal tour. I was like, look, that's fine, but then my fee is this.
Yeah.
You're going to have to pay for me to come. Then it all goes quiet,
Yeah,
and I was like, let
Yeah.
me just do my tours,
Yeah.
And it's like any young business, I treat it like a business.
Yeah.
It's got its own accounts with my accountant and everything. And you see how much of a struggle it is to run a business.
There's my accountant.
Yeah.
He has to do all my accounts.
Yeah.
I'm
But
just sitting there going, oh my God, I've got to pay tax on that. Oh my God.
but the income, the management, we cover every penny, and we produce a report for every attendee gets a stakeholder report where the money goes, what it does, and all it does is build up for me trust with people that the money's up.
It's an auditing system where you're transparent to those people who come to know where the funds go.
Yeah, but not that I've got a Mercedes. But if I haven't bought a Mercedes, people are going to say, "Oh, he does tours taking money of the Sikh people got a Mercedes." I'm like, mate, I'm a consultant who earns like proper money, right?
Yeah.
That's what the car's for. But people won't see that; they'll just see new tyres on it.
Yeah,
so I was just like, you know what, just leave it with what I've got because I'm happy. It's not, I don't need a Mercedes or anything like that. But I've seen it a lot that people think this is a money making scheme. I said, are you sure? You think walking tours in London is a money making scheme? I was like, yeah, right. So no one's telling you to come.
No,
but the people who come, they get an experience which I hope they don't forget.
For me, it was another time. I went somewhere was the Nottingham Castle.
Yeah.
And you go there, and they got beer clubs, they got a couple of things, and again you were like, yeah, we've got this covered, and then obviously Corinne said, yeah, this is on Anglo-Saxon.
Oh, the 3D one.
Yeah.
Come down Bristol.
Yeah. So I was just like, for me, it was an eye opener, and then when I see that you're like, there's 108 sites around London, I'm like, it's amazing.
108 is just now, but I've probably 10, 15 that are not on there, but I think, because then the stories get a bit more watered down, they need to be brought to life, they're not real artefacts, the events happened here, this is what happened. But we have just one tour just in Hyde Park.
Yeah.
You can walk around Hyde Park, there's 5 Sikh stories in Hyde Park.
Okay.
So when you get to Speaker's Corner, I can tell you the Jagraj story there, because that's where he started.
Yeah.
They're all on the videos. You come to opposite the Royal Albert Hall, the Albert Memorial. The book he's holding on his statue is actually the guide for the 1851 exhibition.
Okay.
And in there is everything about the Kohinoor.
Okay.
Then, if you walk around Hyde Park, they've got the QR codes and everything there. So you can press the QR code and the Great Exhibition comes up on your phone. So this is how things work. So you can see the India galleries there.
Okay.
Then you go further up and you see where Sophia the Leapsing went to Exeter House and she led the march during the suffragettes there.
Okay.
Then you look over and you can see the showrooms for Rolls Royce where the Maharaja Patiala.
Yeah, all that for the
this is just in Hyde Park.
I didn't realise that was there.
Yeah, that was there. So this is all.
We were only at Shepherd's Bush, and I mentioned that story about the Rolls Royce.
Yeah, but that showroom was there, so he's there now. So all of these little stories, and then you've got the Pavilion Gates there as well. You've got all the VC winners memorialised at corner of Hyde Park, leads to Buckingham Palace. So for me, it's like, how many tours do you want? It's like, there's so many, and all of it comes from just merging the London history with the Sikh history.
Yeah.
You have to merge the two together.
Of course.
There's a whole tour in the Docklands, it's called East India Docks, because that's where the stuff came from. Start a tour from there and go into the Kohinoor. You just follow a line and you can tell hundreds of Sikh stories. The first Cockney Sikh punk rocker Suresh Singh, his story is all in Tower Hamlets. I go to his house, tell that story. First Punjabi punk, But this book is actually about his mum and dad.
The modest living.
It's such a nice story. And he talks about something in there that he says his dad, in Paulie 28 of the Judges said about always wearing the cloak of death. And when you've translated that in your book, right? So that one to me is quite a personal one, because I think the way we behave as Sikhs, the way we do things, that's just the thing. There's people who go to Sikhs walking around who remember the cloak of death, right? And they that's it. So, and then there's others who aren't aware of that cloak of death. And that's the way I just that's the way I see people. I talk to them.
That's the initial marriage.
Yeah.
The marriage of the soul with death. That you carry that cloak of death. That death is going to come impartial of whatever you do in this life.
And I think for me, that's just through my own personal chronic conditions as a kid. That's always been true.
Yeah.
So if I can remember that, then it just makes everything I do glass half full, more positive, because you're kind of grateful for the day, kind of thing. And that's people who are closer to me know that, but you can't see it. No one will know it. On a tour they won't know. But the way you talk to people, you just always remember that we're all wearing that cloak.
Exactly.
And he talks about it in that book. And then when I went to see him speak, and he spoke about it, kind of connects you together. And it's quite interesting.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah, no, I'll show you where it is.
No, that's really interesting. But I totally understand that. Follow that through. Right, quick couple of questions I just want to go through. With regards to you putting this together, did you have any specific influence? I know you talked about your grandmother as growing up as an influence, but with regards to this sort of stuff, with regards to the collector's memorabilia, with regards to the walking tours, did you have any influences that impacted on you actually doing it?
So I think my first influence would be Avtar Singh Bara and his father, who have an extensive collection. This is probably a fraction of what I've seen in there, and they've always been open when his father was alive at the Gurdwara, and Avtar does some exhibitions. So I no doubt that was the switch to say, switch your collection from India to Sikh and you'll still have a good collection. That was definitely an influence. To be honest, with the walking tours, I don't know how they came about, to be honest. The story is through just dragging the kids along, then the families along, then they got themselves Sikh history tours, then saying, Facebook has got events on, let's try and put events, get new people. And I would say that that's quite innovative and pioneering, because I did speak to Jagannath in the early days when he was doing a lot of YouTube stuff. He was going around London with a camera, I was going around London with a history book, and he did say to me, just record it, put it on YouTube, and I was like, mate, I don't want to take all this kit with me everywhere. Like, he had a backpack full of cameras, tripods, get out, just start wherever, High Street, wherever. And I did meet him on a couple of occasions and a few camps. He saw this stuff. We had a chat. He was like, you need to put it on the internet. And I said, yeah, but we're a little history of the Sikhs. We're talking about this stuff. We're not, like the big stuff. And so that advice thing, but you would watch how he was growing and doing things, and it was making an impact. And at the same time, I had a closed group on Facebook. I just wanted people to attend a tour and become a little part of a community. That's all it was. His closed group is still there. I've had to write it's closed. Stop trying to join this group. We're open now. I think that whole wave, that Nanak Naam basics, and I think for me particularly, I've always felt my Sikhi is personal. I can never stand up in front of an adult audience and talk about any baths, any bath, anything, because for me, I'm still reading your books, trying to,
I'm reading those books too.
So I don't feel I have the confidence to have an engagement vichar on that level. I can sit here and have a study circle and learn from each other on these products, which might bring up Gurbani, no problem. And I can do all of that. But in an internet space or a public space, I just find it's not a very supportive environment, and I don't think it's supportive for young people either. I get a lot of people criticise, a pause or a break in a certain thing when I'm talking. And I'm like, really? So there was a video about this, and you picked up that my tie was slightly bent. Or I said a fateh in a church. I said, what else am I going to say? To me, Bible comes naturally. I'm just going to say, I'm not going to say Jesus, am I? In a church. So I get these feedbacks, and I'm like, did you even know the church was there? Did you even know we've got Punjab Frontier Falls Chapel in London with stuff from the Punjab, from the 1800s, which smells like Punjab, feels like Punjab, has been kept like Punjab. It was picked up in the Northwest Frontier and brought to Chelsea. Did you know that? No. But you're worried about my tie being slightly crooked because I had a face mask on and I kept pulling it. I was like, if that's your feedback or video, up the door.
Unfortunately, there's for every step you try to take forward to bring forward a bit of history, bring forward a bit of knowledge, you have 3 people trying to push you back.
And I don't know why.
That's just how
I just think people struggle to be positive about anything. And I think it's that cloak of death thing as well. Really, I think if that was your last thing you ever said on this earth, is that what you wanted it to be? That, mate, Singh, why's your time bent on this video? Should have been straight. I was like, mate, I'll re-record it and have to go back and do this, do that. I was like, I don't care.
No, a good point to say is that the moment you come forward, people in the world don't like that, because all of a sudden you're trying to, even though you're not trying to promote yourself, you're trying to promote an idea or some history or something like that. They don't see that. They just see, I don't have that same thing going on, so I'm going to do what we see now on the internet, the trolling thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So.
And that takes a set. Like most of us, I'm in my 40s now, and the confidence has been built up through. I know I'm grounded in my geographical histories. I'm still, I would, like all of us, we're never going to finish learning Sikhi, so that's a continual path.
Yeah.
So for me, when I was trying to work out where I make my contribution, this felt like a gap that I could work in and bring out the stories. And I think this thing about the future, in 2020, that was the plan, to reduce my work and stop looking inward to Sikhi and bring the Sikhi outward. And now I've got a lot of partnerships with organisations that are emerging. And it's all going to be in a non-Sikh space going forward. And I don't know if that's the journey it's always going to be on.
No, it needs to be.
But that's the journey it's going to go on.
We need to start looking out, and other people need to start looking in. So other people that are outside groups who are not Sikhs need to understand how vital and important our history is in the makeup of what we do today.
I think so, and I think this makes it, presents it in a way that's digestible for them. It's not, it's multifaceted. It's covering culture, arts, politics, etc., not just religion. I'm working with a school next week, and I'm just going to talk about how Sikh soldiers kept their faith on the World War One, and I've got lots of photos about that and other.
I saw that one where they do the oath on the one.
And
I go into court, and they will say to me, it's an affirmation on oath. I usually affirm because they haven't got a good go there. But if I've got a good go there, I will always do the oath upon the good go. I swear by, Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji, that evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. That's done upon the good go. So, and to see that there.
It's always been there. It's always been for a long time. I can even show you the oath they take. And it's a weird one. I've got it in a book that I bought here, and I think I've just shared it with a few other people, but it's in one of my videos. They say, instead of for king and country, it says for the Guru, then it says, if I disobey my officer, who's British, then may the Guru Granth Sahib Ji bring misfortune upon me. And when it says that, it's like, but the Guru was never there to cause you any harm anyway. He's never going to cause you misfortune. Guru's not going to. But the British had analysed it all that way and presented it their way, which made it look like that. And it's like, to me, it's so weird that as a practicing Sikh, you would even think that your Guru's going to cause you misfortune when only the Guru gives. It doesn't.
The Guru provides always.
But they put it in to make you compliant with this.
But it's in line with
the same
Semitic sort of values that they have, because the Semitic God can be a benevolent God and can be a wrathful God at the same time. So
they were just compartmentalising or comparing ours to theirs and just swapping a few words out, and they're putting Guru where they had. And to uncover these and find these and then tell these stories, it's amazing. People just don't. So every other regiment would be on king in another country, and our regiments would be on the Guru Granth Sahib. So they knew, didn't they?
Yeah, definitely. Right. A couple of last questions before we finish. I need to plug when your next tours are and things like that. But before that, I just want to get to a couple of things. What are your interests and hobbies? I know this is a hobby.
So this is a hobby, So basically, you'll see. I think London history has always been a hobby. But I played the table tennis, done the swimming, try and keep the weight down. It has to be a hobby. I have a dog, as you see, and that's my making sure he has the exercise, which means I have the exercise. Turns into kind of part of your routine for the day. So I generally end up doing two things at once. If we're watching Netflix, I'm always doing research.
I'm doing the same.
Right.
There's a headphone on all the time.
See, or something's going on. And if I'm in this space, then they will know in there that just leave him. If he's working or whatever, just leave him. I'll walk across. And I think I'm getting better at having going out socially now, because you've got to remember in my 20s and 30s I just worked, and now it's only my 40s. I think I've done enough to now to spend an evening just having a meal with a few people and just building friendships, because I never did that before.
Yeah, I just started that again after years. I think for the last 15 years I put that to the side.
And I felt I put it aside because it was just living in London was just manic, right? If you haven't got 2 or 3 jobs, you're not doing well, right?
Yeah.
And this, I was always carving time out for this. But I think there's a lot of Sikh organisations I work with now, and if they can learn from my journey and I can help them with project management and being realistic, I don't think there's, no one's going to pick up the phone to you and say, I'm going to donate £250,000 to make sure your organisation is going to have a future. It's not going to happen. I feel it's going to be grassroots upwards. It's going to be small trickle donations that build up. Then you've got to make sure that the bulk of your costs are covered.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, then your organisation's got a building block.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be seeking funding and doing this and doing that, then you're going to be very clear, because you're going to you're going to be on a rat race that goes like this.
Yeah.
So my hobbies. I didn't even speak about the cars and the other stuff we do, but there's lots of stuff I've done. There's got big hobbies.
Tell me, what are your hobbies? This is the whole point. It's about finding out who the person is.
So on social media, you'll only see, if I accept your friend request, you'll only see landscapes or dog walks when I go out. That's on my personal. And little history will only be history. Then the other parts of me are that I've probably built up 2 or 3 businesses from a young age, and they're hobby-based businesses. So we started shipping American cars, as I said to you, when I was 15 or 16. And I would go over to America and bring them over. So for my work partner, that's his business, pays his mortgage, but it's never going to pay mine, but I earn a good salary out of it. So we have American stretch limousines, the Cadillacs, the 1950s and 60s cars you see in Cuba. We've got about 15 of those. So we hire them out to all the YouTubers these days who want to make a video.
YouTubers and wedding people.
Weddings. We used to do weddings a lot, but nowadays it's all YouTubers. And then when the recession hit in 2010, we had a meeting, and rather than drop the price of the cars, we ended up buying a yacht in the River Thames. So we have a luxury yacht sitting on the River Thames. That only goes out once or twice a month. If it does go out with the footballers, the Tom Cruises and those people, if it goes out, then we know all our bills are covered that month. This is high-end work at prices that just mean that money isn't a big worry anymore. We're part of some very, very exclusive clubs that need service at the top end, and once you're wearing that badge, you don't need to do any marketing. They come to you. So that's what we do, and that's all built through, I think, a business where we just did our job properly. We don't get involved in politics. We just provide the service. We don't get who's on the boat. We don't want photos with all these legends that come on it.
We're just
their driver.
We're just here to provide a service.
And that's why we get the business. He's a humble guy. He does the driving. I do all the back office. So that's kind of a hobby, but it turned into a business, and all these hobbies turn into business. This is a hobby turning into a business. So those are all juggling balls. They're all seasonal work. So cars are busy in the summer, the boat's busy in the summer, in the winter it's not. Then the Sikh history research is in the winter, and the consultancy we treat as a hobby as well. So that's a part of my life not a lot of people know about.
That's awesome.
But, anyone in Ilford who hires a limousine has obviously contacted me at some point for a quote. But that's when I put my English Jewish voice on and I just talk like that.
I like the luxury yacht thing. Although I get scared of just doing the Dover crossing. I don't.
I think these luxury yachts in the River Thames are different. They're expensive. There's only one, so they all have to come to us, any hotel. And we just do the O2 runs. For anyone performing on the O2, I know where they're normally staying and where they're provided to these. That's a little business in the background that I run with 2 other partners. Partners, that's a different business. That one's I just do the paperwork for. And it's a funny industry, the yacht business. It's exempt from a lot of VAT, which I didn't realise. So you don't have to pay VAT on a yacht. The fuel is usually VAT free. The bookings are VAT free, which is why the rich invest in yachts. They've got their own laws that are all VAT free.
I don't think I'd go very far in Leicester with a luxury yacht.
It's a Fairline Targa 52. It's called Lady Kate. They look it up online and see it's a new website there.
I'm sure if I look up Lady Cat, something else might come up.
Yeah,
I'm not worried about that.
Yeah, that's what you have to cater for the American audience.
Yeah.
So that's that. But a little history is my passion and my project, you know. And now the team's working with it, and I hope they take it on.
That's good.
So we help other businesses.
Okay.
We have our own couple of businesses, but I think for other people, being a master of your own time is so key.
Yeah.
And if you can coordinate your diaries, whether it's midday time or evening time,
Yeah.
but you can earn your 7 hours wage whenever you want to earn it.
Exactly.
It opens up a whole new world without a 9-to-5 job that you have to travel in for, you know.
No, definitely. Right. Future projects and plans.
So the future 2020s, I wanted to go down to 3.5 days a week at the office, 1.5 days every week on Little History.
Yeah.
The reason was to find new partnerships and new work. So this year, I'll probably tell you now, but it'll be out in February, we've been working with the Faculty of History at Oxford University.
Okay.
So we'll be endorsed by them, so that will be a new audience. Loughborough University, working with the creative and media industries to work how this story fits into what they call creative engagement, they said.
Yeah.
You know, because we've been working with them. And then the historic Royal Palaces, we've got a partnership with them, the Royal Hospital Chelsea, lots of exciting projects. And that's going to take time, you know, and a team and people to work with. And I think that's where this is going to be heading, these Sikh stories in the mainstream space.
Good.
That other people can tell, not just my tools, you know, because it will be documented, it will be available on boards. And I don't know what else is going to come out, you know. So I think it's set up now, the work's done now to present this to new audiences.
So wider audience.
And I don't want to, we're not chasing likes, hits or any of that. This is suitable for certain things. Yeah. And if those now come, we built this website 2 years ago during the first lockdown, and it's opening up lots of opportunities. But I think a lot of it's because it's quality content on it.
Yeah, it is quality content.
Yeah, it's not a rushed up site. You know,
100%.
it's highly designed, and all of this stuff will be on it eventually. You know, with high res images or.
Tell me NFTs.
Yeah, well, this is it. I've learned that today. My
NFT
son's
everything.
upstairs making NFTs.
I'll teach you, man.
Yeah.
Teach you how to NFT half. You know, you've got so many physical things.
Yeah.
That you could NFT those, and then people will have a digital version of each item. And you know, there's so much in here that, you know, it's there's so much you could do. There's so much you could do. But well, the other thing is obviously you've mentioned about doing another paper. Yeah,
I'm working on a paper. It's like history on the streets of Tower Hamlets, the East End rag trade. So Peter Bance and everyone knows about the 1930s. I think there was a rags to riches story, 1970s to 1990s.
Okay.
These people who had factories rented from the Jewish community in the East End, their property prices just went so high, they became millionaires so quickly in the 90s that they came and went, and then the Bengalis came in and it came to Bangladesh. But that Sikh episode
was just before that.
Is 80s and 90s, and I'm now meeting the people, the last of those people, and getting their stories documented to write the third paper.
Good.
Sikh history in the streets of Tower Hamlets. So it had Kohinoor is actually in Tower Hamlets. The Tower of London is in Tower Hamlets.
Yeah.
The first trade docks, East End. We've got the whole Lascars who came in as seamen into Tower Hamlets.
Mm.
It's a fire building the Lascars Club for Indian food, which is just down in Newham. All these stories that somehow just don't reach anything, you know, within our community.
Yeah.
And yet we could probably trace our roots back to being connected to those people. You know, because where else would they come from?
Yeah.
If it's not East Africa.
No, they came down.
Yeah, they came, you know. So that's an interesting paper. I've written most of it, but I just need to do more interviews because it's just leading to more interviews and more interviews.
Yeah.
So I'm only going to write it once, so I thought I'll get more interviews and more flavour in there. But there's a first licensee for a public house. He was in the East End in Brick Lane. These fashion houses in Brick Lane that made money, suppliers to Marks and Spencer's. And you know, they've all moved on, but they've still got the property there. They're all renting it out and their families are working away.
Yeah.
And if they're happy to tell their story.
It's a story worth getting.
But it's a story that's aligned to Canary Wharf as well, because the property prices went up because of its proximity to London.
Yeah.
And these guys just got caught on a wave. They came in a very poverty-stricken area because it's cheap, and ended up leaving at a very high area because it's, you know, next to Canary Wharf.
It's a good kismet, isn't it?
Well, yeah. So they probably did a lot of hard work as well.
Of course
All
they did.
just catching
Yeah.
away.
Of course they did. You know, I don't know.
What I mean, from their perspective.
Yeah.
But if that factory was in Basildon, the land price wouldn't have gone up.
No.
You know, and now they're all multiple flats and things. I want to write that story in a way that I haven't seen it. I've researched it everywhere.
Yeah.
It's not documented online. So I want to meet the people and get their stories, which I've heard. But now I'm going to tell them it's for an academic paper. So please get your dates right. Please get me some evidence about leases and arrangements. You know.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, so that's that one. But there'll be another paper.
Well, paper-wise, I'd like to. You know.
Which one do you want? I'll just pick out next.
No, I'd like a book like that with regards to like a tour guide,
Yeah.
like a London guide. I know you're going to put that on a website anyway, so why not into publication?
So I think
I'd purchase that because I'd walk around London with the publication going, right, I'm here now.
you know the thing is you're probably walking past it already without knowing. That's all it's going to be.
Problem.
Yeah,
And that's the problem. If
That's
I've got a book with me,
Yeah.
in the same way we went to Rome, we're like, well, here we are.
That's
here.
it. That's
And
it.
then we walked by a load of bits and went, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that physical book there.
And that's what's happening is when I came back from Stanford and the Sikh Foundation link, I've had 4 people flying from America during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Do the tours and go back. I was like, is that what you came in for?
Yeah.
You know, and they were just like, well, we wanted to come to London and we knew you were doing the tours. And I think that's nice,
Yeah.
but also that's a responsibility to make sure they get maximum value out of
Yeah.
it all. And there's more planned like that. So I think I'm beginning to learn, and I have lots of experts. I don't know if they'd ever do it on their own, but I want them to. I want them to be able to say that, and they would do it for money because they're passionate about this as well. So you know. So.
But yeah, like I said, that NFT everything there, NFT all your
Yeah.
stuff, so there's
Yeah, that'd be good.
NFT. But I mean, there's so much I can see. The potential in here is just.
Well, look, it's here
it's
now.
off the charts.
So I hope you don't.
We had a similar experience when we went to see Kamalpreet. You know,
Oh, you could have, yeah.
the amount of potential with the stuff that he has. And you know, what I tried to do through Good With the Child was just try to bring everything available that we
Well,
could.
look,
in the same way that you're doing, in the same way that Kamalpreet's doing, in the same way that everybody we've been seeing, everybody's trying to do that, and you know, we'll just. If
I
we
think
can
it
help
adds to our
everybody-
own kind of human existence as well. Because we find a lot of, you know, like benefit from
Personal
it.
benefit,
Yeah,
yeah.
personal. You know, it's nice. You know, people have different hobbies, and this might be a hobby, but it's definitely you're doing it at a stage in your life when you're not doing it for the money or the
Yeah.
income. There is no money and income in these things, right?
Yeah.
But film scripts will come out of this. I know the kids who come on it are joining these stories together,
Yeah.
and I know that 2 or 3 of them in English are going to start writing a film script. That's where I think
Yeah.
this is going. You know, these stories can be brought to life through screen.
Yeah.
It's just finding the right
Right
whatever-
method of doing
yeah, and the kids can do that because that's for them to work out. You know.
No, that's fine. When do your tours start back up?
So we always start from International Women's Day, which is early March. If the weather's on our side, we will launch a video in early March this year, and then we'll do the Sikh Women's Tour in March. Then we go to Vasaki, and then we've already put out the Oxford one. So we'll do Oxford, Kent, all the London ones, and the international ones this year. I'm thinking Scotland,
Yeah.
Edinburgh, and we're doing World War I France, and we were supposed to do it when the lockdowns kicked in, so we'll just bring that. I'm not sure how difficult it's going to be to get to France and then Belgium, you know, too. But if it's all okay, then that's August. So I'm going to get all of those posters out on our sites.
Yep.
We'll recruit in our normal way, and then those that join, hopefully, will have a good experience and a memorable day.
Good.
But we have. The interesting thing is, in my head, I've got a Sikh history in Malta trip. I've done twice myself. Sikh history in Malaga to Madrid. I want to launch as well. So it's now finding the right weekends to be able to do these ones, where I just give people 3-4 months notice. Say book your own hotel, but I need you here at this date, here at this date, and the rest of it have your own holiday in Madrid and Malaga. But I'll do the train journey.
Yeah.
And the museums this side and the graves that side and all that. We'll do that.
You end up doing loads because you look at what. I'm just saying, the Sikhs during World War II in Italy.
Yeah, Italy. Yeah, for your
I have got a friend in Leicester who's a Baha'i,
right.
and his story is about how the Sikhs saved the Baha'is in Hafia in Israel.
Yeah.
And he's got the names, he's got the stories, he's
The
got
stamps and everything.
You know,
like
so
that. Yeah. That's good.
You can have loads of
That's
stuff.
I don't know if there's physical stuff in Israel, but all of that World War I stories are documented, and they released a stamp recently.
So that's what I mean. So you could
George God Lancers, I think. But you know, there's so many that I want to do, but I don't know at the time.
No, that's good. No,
Yeah.
that's what we can do.
Yeah.
Right, social media and your websites, Facebooks. Can you give us your details, please, so we can put them out with this video?
Thank you. So it's www.alittlehistryoftheSikhs.org.
Yeah.
That's the website. On that, it's got all of our different links on there. But Facebook, it's got its own page, A Little History of the Sikhs. Instagram at Little History of the Sikhs.
Yeah.
Twitter is ALH Sikhs, but I'm not active on Twitter at all. I just can't come up with
It's
it.
just
You
kind
know,
of the backside of
I
it.
just retweet when Sikh PA say we need to support a cause,
Yeah.
and I just retweet it. But I don't even know what a Twitter storm is, to be honest.
Yeah.
They just say, we're all going to do something at 6 o'clock today. I do it, and I'm like waiting for things to happen, but I don't know what happened. And YouTube, we have our own YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So that's what Urban Agali looks after for me.
Yeah.
And he has all the passwords. He's my brother in social media, he does all of that.
If somebody has a personal interest and wants to either add a bit of value to what you're doing, or
Yeah.
is it okay for them to contact you on any of these?
They can, and I would just say, look, turn up for a tour. There's plenty of time between sites to talk.
Yeah.
Once you've done a couple of tours, people have, then they basically become a member of the team
Yeah.
because they know how it all works.
Yeah.
Then I just say, you've heard the story before, you can tell the story today.
Yeah.
Or I meet historians, they turn up and they have a lot of local knowledge, like
Yeah.
at Gravesend,
Yeah.
between Jagdev, Mukhtiar and Indy,
Yeah.
they've got loads of knowledge. So I was just giving them a platform as well. Say, buddy, can you finish off what I started?
Yeah.
And they knew the soldier personally, Mahinder Singh. So why am I standing there telling a story?
Okay.
And that was their friend. So I said, you tell us, bring it to life, this statue. We go into the church. They were the ones who installed the plaque there. So, let that team take over. And they brought a local historian. So I find that I'm just an enabler for Kent now. I'm just letting the Kent historians bring it to life. They just come under the banner. Brighton, similarly, you've got the Chatham Memorial
Yeah.
guys. They know all of that stuff. So all I need to do is bring an audience to Brighton, and they look after the day. So that's what I think I'm turning into. Is just a
That's good.
audience provider, which is fine for me.
A facilitator for
yeah.
others.
Because I can tell my stories on the coach, so they could get there as an informed audience,
Yes.
and then they have a better day. I think if they know the background to Thetford or to Oxford, then they go in and ask the right questions when Peter helps and goes to.
Yeah, Peter does all that.
Yeah,
That's great. And lastly, before we finish off, have you got any questions for us about today?
No, it's been I think it's been an open, frank discussion. I've never done a podcast before, so let's see how this one goes. I think the name's great, but I don't think I'm the fantastic part of it. I'm probably equally flawed that's
the opportunity. The whole point of the podcast is, flawed, foolish, and fantastic. We all have those ignorances within them.
Yeah.
And in order for us, we've come here, and we didn't know. I don't know this history, and those events, those places, those things that have taken place, and that's where you add that value to become fantastic. And
no, I think it's good, but I hope that you guys come again in your own time, just explore, do what you need to do, just chill here, because it's like rentable space.
Nobody said we're leaving today.
I know, good.
Yeah,
but I have partners locally. They come through the side. They can use the space. In the Gurdwara, the biggest problem I had in Gurdwara is Wi-Fi and connection cables.
Yeah.
HDMI and LPT one, they're still running on some Gurdwaras.
Yeah.
So I have a whole box of adapters and all this stuff. And I just rather now do it on this screen with this setup and just say do it from here. It's just it's all boosted up for that. But I don't know if this was a mistake. It just felt right for me to do.
It's good. Got you at the right time.
Yeah, I think so. But I think for my kids, I don't know. They just wanted a sofa here to play PlayStation.
Yeah, no, that's always, isn't it?
Yeah, so they just wanted to chill out.
They
wanted a snooker table. They wanted all this stuff. I was like, look, you guys stay in your own space. This is my space.
No, this is beautiful. This is absolutely beautiful.
No,
for me, it's just
I hope we get more visitors this year. I've always offered it up to my WhatsApp groups.
Yeah.
Said, look, come and visit. If your kids learn something, they'll always get something to take away. That's why I share my history. So.
No, it's absolutely brilliant. Look, I just want to say thank you very much for today.
Look, I've never met you in person, but I met two great Sikhs come down to East London all the way from Leicester. I just think it's amazing.
We're honoured to be here. We're honoured to have you on. And like I said, for foolish and flawed, definitely. But it's absolutely brilliant. For me, I'm learning so much, especially when you just went, on Bow Street. I was like, wow, That's me done.
Yeah.
I'll go to those 3 places. I'll take my kids.
Smallest police station, mostly registered.
That's what I mean. So for me, it's that sort of thing. So it's just amazing. So, but for me, the purpose of this is for other people to see this and other people to take up the opportunity of gaining that knowledge from yourself. I know you've got students and people under your tutelage already.
I hope they carry on. I think they will, but there's always space.
But I want families. I want gurdwaras. I want things in Leicester and places like that to go. What you mean? We could take a trip down and somebody will show us around this.
Yeah.
Well, let's take that opportunity while we've got the chance.
Take it, yeah.
So no, I just want to say thank you very much. I
No,
really appreciate everything.
I enjoyed it. I don't know what
I
time.
apologise for your time.
No,
taking your time.
I've enjoyed it, so I'm just thinking. I don't know what your time limit
No,
is.
we ain't got no time limits. We're good. We're at somebody's house until they kick us out, basically.
Oh my goodness,
So
that's brilliant.
But no, like I said, thank you from the Flawed, Foolish and fantastic podcast. Just want to say thank you very much. Why would you go?
Why did you keep like that?